From the Southeast Asian capital city of the Philippine Islands, Manila, I bid you all good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the annual Ghost to Ghost program. No guests, just you all. It's your opportunity to tell what you consider to be a very, very scary, very real ghost story. Now, I've got a copy of Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary here, and I took a look at it just for fun before airtime. And it says ghost. One. This is very, very interesting. Definition one is the seat of life or intelligence. Check that out. The first definition, the seat of life or intelligence, soul, if you will. Two, a disembodied soul, the soul of a dead person believed to be an inhabitant of the unseen world or to appear to the living in bodily likeness. Three, spirit, demon, but it's one that I really like. One, the seat of life or intelligence. It comes from the big Collegiate Dictionary. Really big one. So tonight is going to be your opportunity. If you know the numbers, you're welcome to begin lining up now. But I must warn you, we have a tough screener. Tom Danheiser is screening tonight. He will want to hear a little bit of your story and know that it fits in, that it's going to be a good one. Spirit attacks, entity attacks. Oh, I love those. Ghost stories that have kind of a catch, a gotcha at the end of them. I love those, too. And, of course, I have received, as requested, some by email, for example, art. My sister inherited my mother and my aunt's psychic abilities. My sister was asked to come to a house in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a house that's over 100 years old, to smudge it. Now, I'm not familiar with the term smudge, but I guess I have an idea, a small idea. A family had recently bought it, and after they moved there, they began to experience strange activities. As my sister walked through the house, blessing it and smudging it as she went, she continued through the house into the dirt basement. When she walked into the basement area with 4 residents and her son, she suddenly threw up her arms and gasped. This stunned everybody. What she was experiencing was a long, skinny rifle in her face. She thought she was about to be shot. When she realized that, in fact, she was seeing a vision, she turned to her right, and there huddled together were 2 young Confederate soldiers with so much fear on their face that she started to pray for them, told them to go to the light. They've been there for a long time. They'd be all right. She said the evil she felt was absolutely indescribable. Even though the residents told her there was some improvement after the smudging, they wanted her to return for additional smudging. The impact of the evil presence and the fear of the young soldiers prevented her from returning to this residence for any additional smudgings. In fact, she tears up to this day and cannot discuss the impact of the vision without crying. The owners of the house, of course, abandoned the house a few months later and moved back to their old neighborhood in Maryland. This I can assure you, is a true story. Or this. Art, a few weeks ago, my wife and I were driving about 100 miles to visit my family. While on the interstate, we came to a complete stop due to an accident up ahead. As we sat there, it became apparent that this was going to take quite a while, quite some time. So we turned around through the median. Have you ever done that? Went back to the next exit and went around the wreck via country roads. Well, when we found the next on-ramp just past the wreck, we started to get on the interstate and continue our trip. As we slowed down to look at the wreck from the bridge, we all do that, don't we? I saw a lady walking up the off-ramp. That's up the off-ramp, folks. Our eyes met for a moment, and for some reason I got a very strange feeling from this lady. She just sort of stared right through me with the most bewildered and confused expression I've seen. Well, a few days later, I was reading the local paper, and I just about had a heart attack. Her picture was there in the obits as one of the people killed in that wreck. Funny thing is, just after I saw her walking there, deep, deep down, somewhere inside of me, I already knew. But the unbelieving side of me simply dismissed it as fantasy. Guess not, huh? Or this, Art, longtime SWL, ham, and Coast fan. That means shortwave listener. Thought about telling you about this one for some time, so here goes. Back in 1978, I was driving out in a secluded rural area sometime after midnight on a date with a young lady. We parked on a deserted country road, talking and enjoying each other's company, when we noticed all the dogs and coyotes in the area were howling like crazy. So much so that we were a bit spooked at this point, and it was well past the time that she was supposed to be home. I started out of there, driving her on home, which was nearby, well out in the boonies. We approached her house from the long way round, as she didn't really want to go home yet. But I was anxious to get her home, lest we both get in hot water with her parents. Anyway, we were rolling slowly toward her house, and we approached an old church. It was about an eighth mile from her house. It was such an old church that it had a graveyard in the back of it, as was practiced years ago. Remember that? Anyway, my date suddenly said, "Look at that." I looked, and I saw what appeared to be a woman crossing on foot from the old church across the road in front of our path. So I slowed the car to a near stop, and the, in quotes, woman crossed the road, probably not more than 50 feet in front of the car. But in the headlights, I could see it was a woman in a nightgown and nightcap of the old style, but she was floating about 2 feet off the ground and had no legs. I could also see that her eyes were just dark holes, no eyes visible. She never looked at us, but just stared straight ahead. My date was totally freaking out by now. I was so astounded, this part grabs me, that I stopped the car and popped the door open, thinking I would jump out and get a closer look at this thing. But my date, having none of it, screamed at me to get us the hell out of there. The woman continued on across the road, passing right through rows of vines that grew parallel to the road. My girlfriend was just about hysterical at this point, made me promise to sit outside her house for a while, make sure nothing was around. That was the most fantastic thing I've ever seen. And believe me, Art, an absolutely true story. Now, I have many of these, and I'll kind of spread them around as we move through Halloween night. Now, listen, my Hamcam photo is in the middle of the page, coasttocoastam.com. It was kind of weird. It went up there, and the one I had put up there indeed went up there, and then I guess I got some other server, and I got an old picture. But I'm sure most of you are going to get the correct one. Now, many of you may have seen this before, but to me, it's a blowaway. And it was years ago. I think I posted this some years ago. I've always thought it was one of the top 3 ghost photographs ever taken by anybody. This particular one, obviously, the target of the photograph was a young lady, and that's one thing I always look for. You know, it's not like people are just randomly taking pictures and happen to catch ghosts. You know, something like that might be faked. This was not a random photograph. It was a little girl, somebody taking a picture of a little girl, but, oh my God. In the foreground, in front of this young lady, there is this form of a being. Well, it's somewhat translucent, but it's pretty awful. I mean, you can see sort of arms, you can see a head, you can see a body, you can see legs, and you can see some kind of tail, and it's, you know, somewhat translucent. It's really pretty freaky. So that's my little offering for the night. You may have seen this one before, but it's definitely one of the better ones. All right, so again, tonight will be nothing but all of you. Now, again, we've got a tough screener, so what I want are tough, scary, well-told, gotcha kind of ghost stories. Now, I don't rule out, as I mentioned, entity attacks. There's something very, very frightening about being grabbed by something or touched by something or in some way manipulated physically by something. Actually, it's completely awful. Now, for the occasion, though outside the Philippine sunshine is bright and clear today, and the weather good, I have darkened down my little cubicle, my little area where I do this program, to give me the feel, the exact feel that I want for Halloween, which is what I've got right now. So in a moment, we're going to turn to all of you, and we're going to begin sampling what is in the night across North America. Stay right where you are. Rob in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, says, since when does Art Bell use call screeners? Harumph. Well, Rob, always at Halloween. And frankly, since I've been over here in Southeast Asia, it's been an easier way to go. And particularly on Halloween, when I want to make sure I get the very best of what's to be told out there. You see, I guess until you've experienced the reality of ghosts, you're fully entitled to go harumph or anything else you want to do, or I don't believe, and I don't blame you. But once you've experienced something, well, then it's never as easy again. You can't join the skeptics. You can't join the doubters because you have seen yourself. So the very best you can do is sort of perhaps avoid the conversation or even the subject so that you don't have to talk about what you've seen. All right, let us begin. Let's go to the wild card line and say hello, Jack in Miami, Florida. You are on the air.
I was at a
Hello.
Halloween party last year at a frat house on a college campus. It was very Wicca and occult oriented, the party. I was only there because of a girl. I wasn't interested in any of that at the time. Something that happened there did pique my interest in it. Um, Basically, I was just downstairs, and someone came to the top of the stairs and asked if there was a Jack here. And I was like, that's my name. The guy said, would you come upstairs real quick because the board keeps asking for me or asking for you.
The
I didn't even
board?
know. Yeah, they said the board. And I didn't even know what they meant by it, but I wasn't really having any fun at all. I
Oh,
really
we're
didn't.
talking Ouija here.
We're talking Ouija board. uh, so I went upstairs. And when I got upstairs, I walked in the room, and the three people around it, were reading it, and it said, I'm okay. And I asked them, I'm like, well, what's okay? Was it talking to me? I was just asking questions. I was like, what is that thing? What's okay? They said they didn't know. And the one guy who did seem to know what was going on concerning all that said that the spirit that was talking then was different than the one that was asking for me. But that before, it was very insistent to them that it spoke to Jack, and no one knew who I was because I wasn't in that group. I was just there because of a girl. And then the next day, this is why it's kind of hard for me to tell a story, but the next day I got a call from my mom, and it turned out that my dad passed away the night before at around the same time that I was at the party.
Oh. Jack, there is something to this, and I'm going to tell you, buddy, there's a kind of a window. Some ghosts perhaps can continue to haunt for years or be around for years, but there is, after somebody passes, a short window of hours, days, maybe as long as 3 weeks, according to some religions, when spirits can very easily make contact, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And so that was your dad.
Yeah, it got me into this show when I started researching it, so that's a good thing, too.
Did it, I'm curious, did it comfort you, Jack?
Well, it confused me, really. I had to really wonder, if that was him. Doing a little more research, I think it was him. It did. Now that I know that he just, he did want me to know that he was okay, even though at the time I had no idea what or who it was.
Boy, in retrospect, what an opportunity to ask about the nature of the other side. If only, the same spirit had been there. But maybe that's something we are just not to know, Jack, until we get there ourselves.
Possibly.
Take care, buddy, and thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. Ouija boards. A number of years ago, somebody, and I'm not going to finish this story, so don't hound me to do it. But somebody sent me what had to be truly an ancient Ouija board. Really ancient. I mean, this thing looked like it had been around since the 1800s or something. There was no explanation with it. There was no little letter with it, or, hey, Art, I thought you'd like to have. A number of you may recall, I think we had a quick interrupt there. A number of you may recall that I had this Ouija board, and something truly awful occurred. And I mean something truly awful occurred. Something so awful that I will not talk about it here on the air. Suffice to say that the Ouija board was dealt with by Ramona and myself in a manner that she understood much better than I did. But my God, that scared me. I mean, it really scared me, folks. And I don't scare that easily, but that incident, what happened with that doggone Ouija board, was really frightening. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Ghost to Ghost AM 2006.
Thank you, Art. Okay, the screener liked to call mine a toy from the other side.
A toy?
A toy from the other side. That's what he said. A toy from the other side. I'll call it that. But what happened was I've been around spirits, ghosts, all my life since I was 2. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. One that always came around that I could never see or never saw I'd go to sleep, and a strong burning smell would fill the room. And it was the type like out in a forest, burning trees or burning wood. And it would wake me up, and of course I'd flash to some place and see if everything was safe. And then one night it happened, and it all happened so fast that apparently my spirit was out of my body while I was asleep and doing what they're doing, but I woke up so fast, and so I thought fire, and I flashed from my bed, and I didn't kill myself or anything, and I crashed right into him.
Oh, my God.
Right into him. He was on the corner of my bed, and I flashed, and we collided into each other. And because I had just woken up and in a real tranquil state, I could tell his features, his eyes, and a mouth. I could just see, because it is energy, just open wide. And I scared the heck out of him, and and of course, I was just really, I don't know what, but in the moments that quickly happened, he came back up, and I was still trying to come back or get awake or whatever, and I knew mental telepathy-wise, he showed me a toy. He had a toy. He was saying to me, "This is my toy," because we had this meeting, and I looked at it, and I'm an artist, and I can describe what I saw. And afterwards you can ask me what I saw, this toy from the other side. But I was so irritated I had to get to this fire. So I just said, "Get out of my way." And I ran to the kitchen, but I realized my spirit wasn't in my body, and I couldn't catch up with myself. I went forward, and I fell into the kitchen.
Diane?
Yeah.
Hold the story
Okay.
right there. We've got to take a break here at the bottom of the hour. This is Ghost to Ghost AM. Ghost to Ghost AM, indeed. A special liner from Ross Mitchell, the voice from Down Under. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it may be, wherever you are across most of the Americas. It's, of course, Halloween. In fact, of course, across all of the Americas. I suppose not the Eastern time zones. It may have clicked over. But what we're doing all night long is nothing but stories from all of you. Nothing but the very best. If you have a very excellent ghost story, I mean, grab you by the shorts and just tug, that kind of ghost story, then we want to hear from you. Those are the numbers. Now, there is going to be one additional way that you can get your story on the air because we realize the phone lines are jammed. So if you have something totally beyond excellent, Tom Danheiser, the screener for this night, and a very tough screener he is, would be happy to peruse the Fast Blasts. And what you can do is go to Fast Blast and just put a little tiny nugget and say, Tom, this one is really, really good. And then supply your telephone number. And if Tom has time, he will indeed call you. So, in other words, calling in is not your only possible avenue to getting in. Since we're so jammed on the lines, we'll add Fast Blast. Just put a little tiny nugget of information trying to tempt Tom into calling you about, something about how good your ghost story is. And then put your area code and phone number there. And if you're lucky, if Tom is tempted, he will call you. Your phone will ring, and before you know it, you will be on the air. This is Ghost to Ghost AM. The Philippines are absolutely cell phone crazy. I mean, they are cell phone crazy. We've got a young lady telling us about a toy. Well, I just got a new toy. It's a P990i, a new Sony cell phone. It's really cool. It allows you to do video calls back and forth. Oh my God, it's cool. Also, Wi-Fi connections to the internet. You can send email. It's it's a smartphone combo PDA phone, and it just does everything you can possibly imagine, and then more. I'm still learning about it days later. So that's my new toy. Back now to Diane's toy. Diane?
Okay, so I flee from him after I tell him get out of my way. And I was going towards the kitchen, and it was if I was trying to get there with no legs, and I could feel behind me something trying to get in me, trying to get in me, and I fell to my knees in my kitchen, and then I felt entered, and I just felt it was my spirit, and all this had happened with my spirit out of my body and the conscious, and now I realize some things about this whole thing, what happens when we are asleep. So I was able to pick myself up off the floor and go back into the room, and of course the smell and everything, as usual, is totally gone. But the toy, okay, I told you I'm an artist, so what the toy looked like, he held it from behind. I could tell he was maneuvering it from behind for me and holding it up in front of me. I can best just say in Star Wars, the very first Star Wars, not the little robot, but the companion of the little robot,
Yes.
E2, or what was his name?
Well, there was R2-D2. That was a little one. And then 3CPO, I believe.
Yeah, it was the taller one. Okay,
right.
This is what it looked like, but I don't know what it's called when scientists work with their calculus and you see all these lines crossed and all that stuff. Well, he was entirely, the toy would look like that figure, but was of all these lines, dimensions and everything crossed.
That's weird. I have two questions for you. You said that you woke up in a start, and really quickly, maybe these entities, Diane, depend on the fact that you're sort of in sleep and sort of coming out slowly of sleep, and so they can normally, quickly, easily get away before you're awake enough to know what was even there.
Absolutely.
That's comment one. Comment two, you said some good, some bad. Now, when you say good and bad, do you mean angelic versus evil?
Yes, because I have my picture of one that was taken that was over me, and she's beautiful. She's just a beautiful, beautiful. It's in color. She's leaning right down over my
Well, there you
head.
have it. Then some. Thank you very much, Diane. Some, as you might imagine, as in life, as in death, there's always an opposite. I guess you cannot define good. You cannot know good unless there is bad, unless there is evil, right? It has to be there, perhaps even on the other side. Certainly the stories would seem to verify that. Again, if you have a really good ghost story, don't be afraid to put a little tempting sentence about it on Fast Blast along with your area code and phone number, and who knows, Mean Tom may call you. Wildcard line, you are on Ghost to Ghost AM.
Hi, Art. This is Rose of Durango.
Hello, Rose.
About 20 years ago, when I was in college, I rented a room in an old 100-year-old house. It's called the Gable House. Now, this house was an old dusty brick color, a dark red dusty color, with a black roof. And it was called the Gable House because it had these turrets and large gables and balconies, that sort of a thing. It was built in the late 1800s by a rich man. It later turned into the first hospital Durango ever had.
I lived in a home just like it, huh?
Have you?
Yeah, in Maryland, right on the Maryland-Pennsylvania border. Very, very old house with 32 rooms.
Wow.
And it was a house that had secret passages in it. It was used, as part of the slaves, to get slaves from the south to the north.
Oh, that would be fascinating.
Yeah.
This house had fallen into disrepair, and then in the 70s, a couple had bought it and refurbished it. They did the whole bottom part for themselves, but they kept the old operating table, and it came down from the ceiling on pulleys, and it was their living room conversation piece. Well, of course, you move in, and all of the other college students are more than willing to tell you what your room was used for.
Yes, I'm sure.
I was up on the third floor in the very back room, and they said, "Oh, I wouldn't want to be in that room." And I said, "Why?" Because that's where they kept the mental patients. It was farthest from the front door. So I've lived on Indian reservations a lot, and I had friends, and I asked them what to do, and they said, to protect the room, you do this, and they gave me a feather and everything, but they forgot to tell me to cleanse the room. So one night, I was laying in bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and over to the right of me were these three, you could call them shadow people, but I could tell that they were trapped within a small circle, and they couldn't get out, and I knew they couldn't harm me, but they just bothered me being
Well, I should say, yeah.
Yeah. One was a short, fat sort of woman, another was a medium-sized, thin woman, and the third was a dark, thin man. And
Did they have substance, or were they sort of translucent?
No, they were solid black, but I didn't get the impression that they were souls. I got the impression that they had been created as entities by the despair and sorrow that went on in the hospital. Have you ever heard of people creating an entity?
Yes, of course. The monster from the id. Yes, of course.
Yes, and they didn't really seem to know I was there, but they were just so depressing. And so this all happened rather quickly. Next, I noticed that up at ceiling level to my left were three white entities. These three were men. One kind of reminded me of an old Greek scholar, Aristotle, Sophocles, or something like that. Sort of a Sean Connery for people who don't have the picture in their mind. And he was the one who was in charge. He was sort of the mentor of these other two. The other one seemed to be a short, fat, medieval merchant type. And the other one was just a non-nondescript. He was just a young man, young athletic man. And the older fellow was sitting there. They were. Here I was with these entities, and they're saying, "Well, now in these situations, the protocol is to do blah blah blah." They were discussing it this way, and then suddenly, the young athletic spirit, and they were just white light, but I got the impression of what they were. But they did have arms and legs, white light with arms, legs, head. It dropped down on my left side, put its arm around me, and white light may be good, but I still don't want anything laying down next to me and putting its arm around me.
No.
So I said, "What are you doing?" And the young man said, "I'm here to protect you." I fell asleep instantly and slept till morning.
Well, maybe perhaps again the yin and the yang, the good versus the evil.
Yes,
Maybe they were protecting you from the darker entities.
Yes, that I had not cleared out. So people should clear before they protect.
All right. All right. Thank you very, very much for the story, Rose.
Thank you.
And you take care, yes. The good and the bad, the good and the evil. They do seem to come together, don't they? I guess they're here, and they're, well, on the other side as well. Let's go all the way to Nebraska and say, James, you're on the air, Ghost to Ghost AM.
How are you, Art?
I'm very well, sir.
Yeah, the story I was telling Tom was about when I was probably about 9 or 10 years old. I lived in a house that was an old, I would say, from what I was told when I was younger, it was an Army recovery hospital. And my brothers remember seeing when they were younger, down in the basement, people all bandaged up, reaching out to him as if to say, help me.
Yes.
And one of the other things is that when I was also younger, we lived. The house, unfortunately, is no longer there. I would have loved gone through it nowadays to see what we could get. I always remembered having a feeling of being watched from. We were like in the center room, and then there was a room off to the right of us, off to the east, that also contained our bathroom. But I always felt like something was looking at me from the darkness.
Something probably was.
Something probably was.
Even when we do the EVPs, you'll notice that the electronic voice phenomena, they go to prisons, they go to hospitals, they go to places where there were suicides, they go to graveyards, they go to, but especially hospitals, mental wards, that sort of place. Any place where it seems like there was a great deal of suffering, something lingers.
Exactly. And what I was telling Tom was one Saturday morning when me and my younger brother were watching Saturday morning cartoons, of course, I just glanced into the kitchen, and the way that our home was set up at the time is that we were in the living room, then the dining room, and there was basically a doorway into the kitchen. Now, right across, literally parallel with this doorway, was a window to the outside. And the sun had just come up, and I seen a woman in nurse's garb cross in front of this window. Now, the only reason I seen her is because she blocked out the light. And I went in there, and there was nobody there. Nobody.
So whatever it was had substance, or it could not have blocked the light.
I mean, this had to have some type of substance. And it just, to talk about it now, it just kind of creeps me out. It's like, sends a shiver up my spine. But I truly believe that not only was that house somewhat haunted, but my family, every house that I've lived in has some type of activity in it, including the one I'm living in now.
Do you think it's you that's bringing the activity?
To be honest, every house that I have lived in has some type of activity. Even when I'm not there, everybody said that there's some strange things that go on there. One Halloween, actually, this is kind of a funny story. my brother's mother-in-law was staying with us, and she had a little trinket on, or not a trinket, but a little squeeze toy on her keychain. And this thing, when you squeezed it, it said, I love chocolate, this little chocolate mousse. One Halloween night, that thing went off by itself. I had no clue what it would do. I was like, whoa, it was like right across the room from me. I go over and I squeeze it, and it said, it says it's mine. I turn around, Art, and I walk back to the chair, and just as I sat down, that thing went off again. And I'm a big guy, but that made me scream. I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
All right, James. Thank you very much. I was almost ready to imagine that it was going to say something other than "I like chocolate." Perhaps something like "Get the hell out." I don't know. The one thing you can't deny, as you listen to all of these stories, and they will line up throughout the night, is that they're real. These things are real. It's one of the great, this and EVP are the things that give me almost, I would say, an absolute faith that there is an existence of some sort after death. Now, some of what you're hearing is not exactly comforting regarding the nature of life after death, but, well, there's an interesting question for a lot of you. Given what you've heard tonight and what you will be hearing through the night and what you've heard with EVP, if that indeed is the existence you can expect after you die, would you prefer the great nothingness? Or would you prefer, well, what you've heard? East of the Rockies in Colorado somewhere, John.
Hi, Art. It's an awesome
Yes.
pleasure to speak with you, sir.
And with you.
I just can't believe I even got through tonight. It's amazing. And my birthday's in 2 days, so this must be an early birthday present.
Happy
All
birthday.
Saints Day. Actually, tomorrow's All Saints Day, and then All Souls Day is the day after, if you're aware of that. But I want to tell you a ghost story, of course. One appropriate thing to do.
Please.
When I was about 12 years old, I went up to Mackinac Island, which is a part of Michigan.
Oh, I know it well.
Mm-hmm. I had a great aunt and uncle that had a place up there. They had a place there and in Florida. And, and they offered us, hey, it's a nice place to stay. Would you like to come up and stay there? And my family, it was my sister, my mother, and my dad. We all said, sure, we'd like to come up. And so we went up there one summer. Not knowing anything about the house or anything, of course. But we went up there, and as soon as I walked in the house, I felt something weird. But, you're thinking, well, no one's going to believe me, or they'll think I'm crazy if I say there's something in this house. But I've always kind of had a sense of that, And I've lived in old houses most of my life, so I've been around that stuff. One thing that would happen would, when you be walking up the stairway, you'd find yourself, it's kind of like if you're in a crowd. You step around people because you can feel they're there, but you don't always see them.
Yes.
You have the sense that someone's standing there. You would find yourself stepping around people. And then kind of look and say, well, how come I can't see anybody? It's a sense you had, I can feel someone there, but they're not, I don't see anyone there. But, that happened, and then I was watching TV in another room, and I felt someone sit down on the couch right next to me, to the point where I looked over to see,
Who it was.
well, to see if the cushion in the couch went down. If someone sat next to you, you'd feel that, right?
Of
You'd
course.
see that.
Yeah.
The cushion didn't go down, but I can tell you someone sat down next to me watching TV. And so, and plus you never felt alone in the house. Someone earlier said they felt there were eyes glaring at them. That's exactly how it was. You never were alone in that house. You'd be in the bathroom and there was eyes glaring at you.
It's a part of a sense that we have. I think animals, of course, have it. And I think that we have it as well. It's a very old ability. Many of us in the modern world have kind of blocked it out. But if it's a danger sense. You understand if somebody's near you, if somebody's stalking you, if somebody's got a rifle aimed at you. You know if somebody's in the room with you. This is Ghost to Ghost AM. In addition to the aforementioned numbers, you can also go to Fast Blast on the coasttocoastam.com website. Send something very tempting. I mean, we only want the very best, very scariest ghost stories. The very scariest ghost stories. And so if you've got one that qualifies as 10 out of a 10, then go to Fast Blast and put your phone number, area code and number, there, and perhaps Tom will call you. And so we'll collect stories not only through those who dial, but perhaps some of them, well, you just never know. Your phone may ring, and it may be Tom. And that means you'll be on the air. So we'll collect in both ways. In a moment, I've got yet another story that I really like sent to me. The following is from Debbie. She says, my story is not the usual spook story. I wanted to share my feelings about ghosts. 6 years ago, I was in recovery from a bad accident. I began to hear noises on my ceiling at night. I told everyone about the noises, but they doubted I was hearing anything. The noises went on for several months. Every night, I'd be woken up by the noises coming from the ceiling in my bedroom. My soul seemed to be telling me I was hearing something. I just couldn't find anyone to believe me. I began to doubt my own sanity. Just when I thought I was crazy, a ghost began visiting me every evening. I could not tell anyone because they thought the stress of the accident caused me to imagine things. The visiting ghost arrived with a bump in the night. This began the signal that my ghost was arriving. Fear gripped me. I'd hang on to the Bible in terror. Over the next few months, I realized whatever I was seeing was not going to harm me. My fear started to disappear. I accepted the ghost for what it was. My journey of insomnia began. I'd go to bed, same time every night, lie awake for the bump in the night to come, watch the ghost come through the window and float around the room. When the noise came from the ceiling, when that started, the ghost would cry softly and go through the ceiling. This would go on for a few hours every night till dawn. I decided if I was crazy, then so be it. In desperation, I sought an answer. My answer came to me one evening. I decided to set up a video camera in the attic and have the feed come through to the TV in my bedroom. I'm the most fortunate woman in the world, as I have people that love me. I asked my son to help me do this. He doubted me, but agreed to help set up the video because I could see he loved me and wanted to help me resolve whatever I was hearing. The first night came with the video in place in the attic. The ghost arrived, crying and weeping, floating all around the room. When the noise started, I jumped up and switched the video camera and TV on. Within minutes, I saw large rats. I saw very large roof rats. Gosh, why did I say cats? Running everywhere in the attic. I sat on the floor crying, knowing that I was hearing something very real. I felt the ghost touch me as a brush as dawn came. The first night, I forgot to push the record button. Next evening came. I was like a little girl with a deep secret, and I could not tell anyone till I had solid evidence the next evening. I did push the record button. I called everyone to come and see my video of the roof rats. Next, I phoned an extermination company. The first two companies I hired after visiting the attic left, refusing to do the job. Well, I did finally find a company to come clean the attic and fix the hole in the roof. When they were cleaning the attic, they found the bones of a woman. I knew this was the ghost visiting me. I knew this because after the discovery, I didn't see the ghost again. 20 years ago, her children, this woman's children, thought she had run away with someone else. It just wasn't true. Her husband had murdered her and put her in the attic. Her husband had died years before. Her children were amazed to find out what really had happened all those years ago. The exterminator company that cleaned up the attic told me later they had felt a presence with them in the attic, but they decided it was not bad, so they kept on with their job. They knew my story and wanted to help. When I purchased the house from the previous owners, they had left me a bundle of sage to burn before I moved in. Though they wouldn't admit it, I believe the ghost had visited them, but they chose to move. It took me 2 years to recover from the stress of hearing and doubting myself. In the end, I'm much stronger for the experience. I decided to learn to remote view because I needed some tool to help me. I'm sending you this story because not all ghosts are mean and nasty. I believe that ghosts put the hole in my roof so the rats would get in and the attic would be investigated. All the best, Debbie. I thought that was a good one. So in that case, obviously, the woman wanted her remains to be found. And while it seemed rather conventional with the rats, can you imagine the shock? Can you imagine the shock when you find bones? My God. All right, let's go to San Diego and a wild card line, and I think Derek. Hello, Derek, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. How are you this evening?
Very well indeed.
Good. My story happened in 1971. My stepfather, who was in the Navy at the time, was transferred from Los Angeles here to San Diego. And what we had to do was rent a house out in one of the surrounding suburbs. We ended up finally getting naval housing. It took about 2.5 years. We moved in, and one evening, while everyone was gone, I saw a very bright green light emanating from underneath my covers. I opened my covers and I saw a fully clothed skeleton. It had a very, very evil grin, and I was just petrified. In fact, I couldn't move. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is this? Well, the next morning, when my mother and father did come back, I told them about the story of the skeleton that I had seen in front of me. And of course, my father, stepfather, if you will, hogwashed the whole story. So, upon further investigation, we found out that the family had to move out of that particular home.
I take it when you tried to show this fully clothed skeleton to somebody else, it was not there.
Correct. It only showed in front of me. I was 11 at the time, 1974. So the next morning I did tell my parents, and of course upon further investigation we found out that the family had to move because the father had passed away. And when you're in the Navy, of course, if you have no naval dependents, they have to move.
That's right.
In this case, we had found out that the man who resided there in the family, the man had passed away in a hunting accident. Actually, he was coming home from hunting. His car went over a cliff. And the clothing that I had seen on the skeleton, if you will, it had a cap, a hunting cap, if you will. It had like a flak jacket. And it was completely green. It was completely luminescent. It lit up the whole room. And I had no lights on in the room, so I was just absolutely petrified.
No, I'm sure you were. No chance you were sleeping. No chance this was a dream.
None whatsoever. It was very vivid, very, very much awake is what I was. And so what absolutely frightened me is that I could tell in my father there was a change, an attitude change for the worst, if you will, and he became a monster. Absolutely hard to live with, and ultimately they did divorce. But this was a man who was happy-go-lucky before the fact, and I thought, this has to connect somehow, some way. The person that I saw, the skeleton or apparition, was very evil. It had a sardonic grin on it. And I really don't know, but I think that had something to do with his attitude change.
Perhaps whatever it was began to inhabit your father.
I believe so. I believe so. From happy-go-lucky, a man who used humor in every regard, to suddenly not being very happy. In fact, one day, he put me up on the wall and asked me who I loved more, my mother or him. And of course I said both. And this from a man who wouldn't harm a fly.
Oh my God.
Oh, I know
And
some.
and so then your parents divorced, and have you ever heard from your father again? How has it turned out for him?
Well, since I've heard he has passed away, and I don't know how long ago, but I just know that there was an absolute attitudinal change in him. I was very shocked, as my mother was and my siblings.
Well, I'm glad it wasn't you, buddy.
I'm very happy about that. Well, my mother had passed away 2 years ago to the day, and she's visited me quite often and said hi, and it's a pleasure absolutely to have her around and other good spirits as well. And I thank you for having the show. It gives a good platform for folks to talk out these things.
It does, and I know that those who don't believe in this kind of thing, or just some people get angry when they hear this sort of thing. It's a way of dealing with what they hear. Oh, what baloney, they say. What hogwash, or much worse. That's just a way of dealing with it. I understand that, but I believe every word that man just said. And I think that probably what happened is whatever had been in that fully clothed skeleton then inhabited his father. What an awful way to go. To lose your personality, to lose yourself to some spirit with unfinished business. No, thank you. Moving to the first-time caller line, it's Bruce in Glendale. Hi.
Hey, Art. How are you?
Fine.
Good, good. Got a very interesting story here. It's a three-part story. It's one story, but it has three different parts.
All right.
My wife and I married in 1985. We were both in our 20s. And we made a promise to each other that if one of us should go before the other, we would make every effort, if possible, to contact the survivor. Well, unfortunately, my wife was killed in a motorcycle accident in 2003. And thank you. And about a month afterwards, I was in my jacuzzi on the patio, dark night, had all the lights off in the patio, all the lights off in the house. Once I finished with the jacuzzi, I got out, put a towel around me. The kitchen door was maybe, 20 feet from the jacuzzi. No, not even that, 8 or 10 feet from the jacuzzi. As I got out, something caught my peripheral vision, really startled me. I turned around very abruptly, as it was like I saw something there. Well, there was nothing. As I walked towards the porch, stepped up on the porch, I opened the door to put my hand in and turn the kitchen light on to go in. And I jokingly said under my breath, I said, "Tina, is that you?" Turned the light on. Immediately, all three of the light bulbs flashed and blew out. They didn't explode, but they all flashed at the same time, like when a light bulb blows out.
Sure.
So that really startled me. Okay.
Naturally, three at once? No way.
Yeah, exactly. So then, within a month, and I have photos of this, I took a series of about 5 or 6 photos. I went to the graveyard to visit, to put flowers on the grave. She had wore an electric blue dress back in the 80s, which was my favorite dress. And when I was in the graveyard, there was this magnificent bluebird, a type I've never seen before with this electric blue color. It would not leave my car alone. It kept trying and trying to get into my car. Bounced from mirror to roof to windshield, kept trying and trying. And fortunately, I had my camera with me because I came to take pictures of the headstone. So I captured all this on film or on digital photography. And it's just an amazing picture. And I still have a picture of her wearing the dress, and you can see it, the bird and her dress were the same color. And it was right next to her grave.
There's something about birds, sir.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And never seen this bird again at the grave site. But birds are always a harbinger of something.
They sure are.
And then the final part of the story is about 6 months after this, I was asleep, 4 a.m., sound sleep, woke immediately, just shockingly out of a fitful sleep. Right at the very moment of waking, it's kind of hard to say when the events took place. I woke first, I didn't, it all kind of happened at once. But she, clearly a vision of her, when she died, she was 46. She looked to be about as she was when she was 30. Beautiful flowing blonde hair, almost translucent, came out of my walk-in closet towards me, simply said, "There is an afterlife, I'm okay," turned and vanished back into the closet. I was just shocked. I had, as I say, woken out of a sound sleep. Heart was racing. I know I saw this. It was not, I'm a completely sane businessman, but I had this trilogy of 3 things happen, and they were all indications that she was okay and that she kept her promise that she would contact me if there was a way that this could be done. And ever since that last time, nothing. That was the last one, the third one, when she, came during the night.
Seems like once that message is through, that's what the loved ones seem to want to get through. And once that message is through, it ends. That's amazing. And I'm sure after you got over the fright of it, I'm sure you felt so much better.
Oh, I do, because I'm convinced. I know that I'll see her again. It's almost like I have a relationship with her now. Like, she's by my side. I've got a very nice, significant woman in my life now, but I always have a little piece of her still with me. But that final, assurance that she was okay made me feel much, much better. And obviously, you and I kind of share a certain bond because of both of us losing our wives at a untimely time. So you understand what I'm talking about, I'm sure.
Bruce, thank you.
Thank you very much, Art. Take care.
My wife, of course, was 47 when she passed away, and it was the second experience that I'd had with a bird, and I think you all know about my dad, and the first one with the little bat. The second experience occurred just before we left on our trip, the RV trip, and damn, it was unnerving because I knew something was going to happen. Well, I can't, no, I'll back away from that. I didn't really know I suspected something was going to happen. This bird, we were out on our porch a day before the trip, and this bird, just nothing but a sparrow or a common bird that we had in the desert, actually not only flew on the porch, but flew right in my face. I mean, the wings of this bird were flapping on my cheek. It was really freaky. And I said, wow, did you see? She said, yeah, I saw. And it came right up to my face and sort of hovered and flapped. And I could actually feel not just the breeze, but I could feel wings touching my face. And that doesn't just happen. That means something. So I guess I have become convinced that birds are harbingers of something. Or maybe if you think they're harbingers, they become so. I'm not sure about it. I just know that for me, a bird doing something really odd like that, it has meaning. Definitely has meaning. Let's see if we have time, barely, so we'll probably have to hold over Jack from Denver. Welcome, Jack.
Hi there. I am calling to tell you a story about something that happened to me when I was about 13 years old. My mother and her 3 sisters grew up on an old farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in the Nebraska Panhandle. And, I won't say middle of nowhere, but it's out there. And she grew up there, and they built a room onto the house when they moved in. It was on the 2nd floor. And this was the house that one of my aunts stayed in, and she's a big fan of your show, too, so she's listening. Hi, Gay. But anyway, I was talking to her one time because that was the room, that was Grandma and Grandpa's house when I was growing up, but that was always the room that I stayed in when I was there. And so I was talking to her one time, and she says to me, have you ever noticed anything like creepy or weird going on in the house, especially in that room? Do you ever feel anything strange? And I had kind of had a foreboding sense in the room, but nothing more than that. And so I said, yeah, I felt weird in there before. And she started to tell me some of the craziest stories of things that had happened to her while she was growing up in that room. And one of the ones I remember most vividly, just briefly, was she got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or something and left the room. And when she came back, lights off, door is wide open. But no matter how hard she tried to enter the room, she couldn't. It was like there was a wall in the doorway, and she couldn't get in.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and so the next time I'm there, I am terrified, of course. I'm 13 years old, and I felt spooked in there before, and now I have all these freaky stories running through my head at 11 o'clock at night or, 12:30, and everybody else is in bed, and all the lights are off and everything. And I'm just laying there, desperately trying to get to sleep. And I'm laying in the bed, and the bed is facing the closets, and the closets are those kind of accordion-style closets on tracks that they kind of roll open, and they make the rolling noise on the tracks.
All right, Jack,
Like,
hold your
yeah.
story right at that point. This is Ghost to Ghost AM. For those who have never experienced it, these are just stories. For those who have had the experience, as you're hearing tonight, nothing will talk them out of it, ever, because they know. I know. Good morning, everybody. It's called Ghost to Ghost AM. Your ghost stories only, all night long. 2 ways to get in. One, the aforementioned telephone numbers. The other, you've got a really good story, and I mean a really scary good story, then go to the website, send a fast blast, include a little bit about the story, enough to tempt us, and then your area code and phone number, and perhaps we'll call you. Also, here's Jack approaching this room. Jack?
Yeah. So I'm actually laying in the bed, and the lights are off. I'm in my grandparents' house, and the bed faces the closets, and there are these accordion closets on these runners, so you can hear them open and close. And I'm laying there, and I'm freaking out because I've always felt weird in this room, and my aunt's told me all these crazy stories, and I'm laying there, and I can't sleep, and I'm tossing and turning, and I'm terrified. And finally, I just give up, and I flip over on my back, and I think to myself, I never said a word out loud, but I thought this very clear thought in my brain. I remember just thinking, if there is something in this room that wants to kill me or hurt me, I wish it would just do it now or let me get some sleep. And no sooner had that thought, gone through my brain, than the closet doors roll open on their tracks from both sides. It's dark, so I can't see it, but I can hear them roll open. And I sat straight up in bed, and in the next instant, I was in the living room downstairs, and I think I ran in that amount of time.
I'm sure you did. I would have.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what there's a memory stop. I sat up in bed, and the next thing I know, I'm downstairs. And, of course, nobody, believes me. Our whole family says, oh, that's the room that was built onto the house. So if there's one room that can't be haunted, that's the one. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that idea, but yeah. But
I hear you, buddy.
Yeah, but of course my aunt, believes me all the way. And the crazy thing is that to this day, I've slept in that room hundreds of times and never ever had a problem again, or even felt the slightest spookiness in there.
Yeah, well, after that, thank you. After that kind of challenge, like either kill me now or let me get some damn sleep, with the doors rolling open, I'd be gone too. So quickly, because obviously at that point the decision to kill would have been made. There's something about closets anyway. What is it about closets? Now, I insist that the closets be closed at night. And, I'm an older guy now, and you wouldn't think I'd have these kind of superstitions, but I do. I don't like open closets. I do not like open closets. And even in the dark, they're open, and there's just something about them. Hell, there's nothing in there, clothes and hangers and all the rest of it. But let's go, I don't know. Let's go west of the Rockies to Beatrice. Hi.
Hi, Art. How are you today?
Just fine.
Great. Well, my ghost story, I lived in Reno at the time, and I lived in a small apartment, and it was an apartment building where there was like a long hallway, and then all of the doors open into this hallway.
Right.
Well, I had fallen asleep. I had been in the apartment only like 3 months. So I had fallen asleep in the living room watching TV, and I was on the couch. And I was awakened by the sound of somebody putting their key in my door and the door opening. And my manager had told me that they had changed the keys, so I wasn't expecting anybody to have a key.
Obviously.
So anyway, I hear this guy coming in my apartment, and he goes to my kitchen was immediately to the right. So he goes in the right, or to the right, and goes to the phone that's hanging on the wall. And he's on the phone talking to this guy, telling him that, the deal was off unless it was a 50-50, split. And then I guess the guy finally agreed with him. So the guy hangs up the phone, and he gets a paper bag from between the wall and the refrigerator, and he opens the bag. You know how when you open a bag, but you just kind of shake it and open it with the air?
Of course.
That's how he did it. And he walked to the back bedroom, and I could hear him, like, putting clothes in the bag. So then he comes to the kitchen again, puts the bag in the kitchen, and then he gets a banana in the refrigerator, because he opens the refrigerator and gets a banana. I didn't have any bananas in my house at the time, but when somebody opens a banana, you can smell it.
Sure.
Well, I smelled the banana. And I'm laying in bed, and I've got the cover.
Why aren't you on the phone calling 911?
He was in the kitchen, and the kitchen was only like
that's where
5
the
feet
phone
away.
was. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm on the couch, and I've got the blankets up covering everything except my eyes. So he comes around the kitchen area and goes into the living room where I am, and he goes and opens the curtains, like looking out through the sliding door. And I'm petrified. And this guy, and he was solid. It was a solid ghost, and I thought he was real. But anyway, he was about 5'7", blonde hair, fair skin, blue eyes. He was wearing jeans and a white T-shirt, and he had his T-shirt rolled up like, like they rolled him up in the 50s, I guess. Well, I thought he was real. I thought he was going to kill me. I thought he was going to rape me. I didn't know what he was going to do. But then he bent down like if he was going to tie his shoe, and that's when I saw that he didn't have any feet, and he didn't have any hands.
Oh, God.
So then I didn't know what to do. I was going to scream. I didn't, but then I didn't want to scream because then he would have known I was there and all of that.
Yes.
So then finally he gets the bag and he goes out the door and goes and meets his friend, I guess. And I got up and I called the police. And they, they came around and stuff and looked, but there wasn't anybody there. So in the morning, because this was like at 1 or 2 in the morning. So in the morning, the deadbolt on my, it wasn't a deadbolt, it was like the chain lock.
Oh, of course, yes.
That was on. The door was locked. The windows were all locked. And there was a banana peel in my trash. And I had been getting, the guy's mail for the last 3 months. And after that day, I didn't get any more of his mail.
Well, obviously, he concluded his business.
I guess. Well, I was still scared, and I wanted to know who that guy was. So I called the manager of the apartment building, and I said, I'm going to describe this guy, and you tell me if you know who he is. So I described the guy and everything, and the manager says, oh, that's the guy that used to live in the apartment before you. And see, they hadn't been able to rent the apartment for like 2 months before I did. So, and the guy didn't know where he was. The manager didn't know where this guy was anymore.
Huh. I wonder if he was even still alive.
I don't know.
Apparently not. All right, dear. Thank you very much for the call. Somebody with a little unfinished business. Now, I wonder if that has something to do, or a lot to do, with time. In other words, was that some sort of ghostly time slip? Somebody who had passed away, who had lived there previously, who had some unfinished business, but to use a phone and to make a call and consummate a deal, that's really odd. But you see, it is a very odd world that we live in, isn't it? Very odd indeed. On the fourth wildcard line, you're on the air, Michael, from Michigan.
Good morning, Mr. Bell.
Good morning.
I'll try not to eulogize you this morning. My parents' house was a farmhouse built in the 1870s. A very large farmhouse with the complete Michigan basement, what we call the Michigan basement, complete basement, 4 rooms in the basement, and a coal chute. Very old farmhouse, very large. In 1994, between my sophomore and junior year of college, I had come home to make some summer money, and my parents and my siblings had decided to go on vacation. I couldn't go with them because I was working a full-time job at the time, second shift. And my parents' house, we had a very sober, very religious upbringing, but we were all used to the hauntings of the house. Everybody agreed that the house was haunted, but it was a very benign haunting. You hear footsteps when you were the only person in the house, lights would turn on, and very benign haunting. Nobody paid any attention to it. I'm working second shift, so I left the foyer light on every day when I left home, so that when I come home off my shift, there'd be a light on still that I could get into the house and have light. The second night after my parents and siblings had gone on vacation, I came home to a dark house. And I thought to myself immediately, I must have forgot to turn on the light before I left. So I unlock the door and I go over to the light switch and I look it up and down and I get no response from the light. And I proceed into the next room and I do the same and go through the entire downstairs of the house and there's no lights coming on. And you get the creepy empty house feeling, but that's the only feeling I'm getting. The refrigerator's not running, the freezer's not running, so I go upstairs and I repeat the same to the same result. So I grab a flashlight out of the kitchen drawer, and the circuit box is in the basement. And nobody ever liked going in the basement, again, the best of times, because there's always a feeling in the basement that you weren't wanted in the basement. You didn't need to go down in the basement if you didn't have to. I opened up the basement door, and I had a very malevolent feeling coming up the basement well. So I went and grabbed one of our house cats, one of our pets, and took it over to the basement because I've always heard that animals can see, and growing up on a farm, you know that animals know what's going on, even if people don't. And walk over to the basement door, and the cat starts hissing and spitting, growling in its throat. It was very unhappy with me. I walked down the steps to the basement, and each step is harder than the last step to take. The feeling of malevolence is getting stronger each step I take. And the fuse box, the shaker box, is in the third room in the basement over by the coal chute. As I go over to the coal chute, getting closer and closer, the cat finally hisses, spits, claws me, jumps out of my arms towards the circuit box, hissing, spitting, clawing the whole time. Turns around and runs up the stairs. When I got over to the circuit box, the circuits hadn't been popped. They had all been flipped to the off position. And this is in a house that was locked up tighter than a drum. Every circuit in the house had been flipped to the off position, so all I had to do was move them to the left to turn them all back on. And then I hightailed it out of the house.
Boy, I'll tell you, I don't know how you kept going. As you mentioned it you could feel a darker and meaner spirit every step of the way, and yet you kept going. Even after the cat clawed and jumped out of your arms,
Mr. Bell, in my mind and even out loud, I was saying the Psalm 19. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. You are my
yeah, well, you
sword.
felt evil, though. I know the Psalm. All right. Well, thank you very much. Cats indeed are very sensitive to this sort of thing, perhaps even more than dogs. I think more than dogs. Cats are very sensitive to this kind of thing, and I can assure you, if that cat had been getting increasingly on edge, and then it never would have come to the point, for me, where the cat would have had to have clawed me and screamed and gone running back up the steps. I'd have been taking the cat back up, I can assure you, myself. Let's go to let's see. Let's go here and say, Butch in Ohio, you're on the air. Ghost to Ghost AM.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
I hope this story is worthy for your listeners, but back in 1981, I was a paramedic in a suburb of Cincinnati. I'm currently living in the Cleveland area, displaced Cincinnatian now. And it was my first suicide that I had ever gone to. And any person who has ever done that kind of line of work they never forget their first suicide. And I remember getting the call from the station, and we're on our way to the residence, and something told me this person has hung himself. And I'm panicking because I've never seen a suicide before. But when we got to the residence, I walked in the door with my partner, and it wasn't no hanging. The place reeked of gunpowder. And there was a woman standing in the living room, and she pointed up the steps. She said, "He's up there." And I knew what I was in for. And there he lies alongside the bed. And he had put a gun to his head, and he had a note there and everything. And it was just a suicide. And that's the only thing that I can guarantee what happened. And we treated him. I've never been on a suicide where a person was dead when you get there. They're always gurgling on their own blood, trying to breathe, and the blood flows from their head into their throat. And bottom line, the man didn't make it. I've never had one that did make it. Now, fast forward to the year of 2002. My wife, Diane, and I are vacationing in Gettysburg. And are you still there, Art?
No, I'm still here.
Okay. We're vacationing in Gettysburg in 2002. And what do you do in Gettysburg but you visit the battlefield, and you go to these ghost seances or these entertainment places where they tell you ghost stories. Well, after the presentation was over, we're standing outside, my wife and I, and we're talking to another couple that we had met there. And she starts talking about how the house she lives in is haunted. And one thing led to another. We're talking, and here she's from the same suburb of Cincinnati that I used to work in. And we're talking, and she tells me what street she lives on, and I said, well, I made a run there one time in 1981 for a suicide on Timely Terrace, which was her street. And she said, that's when it happened. And she began to tell me that she was in the process of suing the realtor, the previous owner of the house, because it was haunted. And I said, haunted? She said, yeah, that man didn't commit suicide. He was murdered.
Oh, my God.
And I said, murdered? He was never murdered. It was a suicide. The police were there with me and everything. I'm sure there was an investigation. Right. He said, no, that man has appeared to her son. And he looks at the boy and he says, she murdered me. Art, all I can guarantee is the part that I was involved with was that the fact that I went to this house in 1981. Sure. The man committed suicide. I did my best, and he didn't make it. And now in 2002, I run into the woman that owns the house, and she says it was not a suicide.
Got it. I'll tell you, I think that in the case of suicides, forget the rest of it. In just even if it had just been a suicide, there's something that so frequently, more frequently than not, seems to cause spirits to hang around. Now, that may reinforce some of what some of you or many of you have heard about suicides, and the fact that you don't get to see your loved ones if you commit suicide. Now, there's a great deal of disagreement about this, but in fact, more times than not, when there has been a suicide, there is some sort of spirit that seems to remain. Now, in the case of a murder, it would perhaps even be more so. And the person murdered, well, I told you the story about the lady who found the skeleton in her attic. They want it known. They want it known. They want to know, they want the world to know what happened to them. And I guess until they find out, they don't move on. They don't rest. They're unable to, that's the only way I can put it. They're unable to be at peace. And until they're at peace, they don't move on. Remember, move to the light. Isn't that what everybody says? Go to the light. Remember John Lear's statement, which actually came from somebody else, which said, oh, no, don't go to the light. The light is a trick. Go to the darkness, said John. That will bug me until the day I die, and I'm faced with that choice. Nevertheless, I think I probably will go to the light. And I recommend that for the rest of you as well. In the night, this is Ghost to Ghost AM. Indeed, here I am. I'm not going to say Happy Halloween for the children that go around and collect candy. I'm sure it is. For adults who have experienced what you're hearing tonight, just doesn't fit, does it? Sandy in Liverpool, New York sends the following. Art, as a young child, I experienced a paradox that has haunted me throughout my life. This is a true story. Never told to anyone because it still disturbs me, so I don't know if it's going to have the same chilling effect on other people, but here it is. As a young girl, I had past life memories of another family. I was convinced I was adopted, which my parents always denied and I accepted. But when I was older, they showed me my birth certificate. There was much sadness in the other family because my grandfather was a stern, controlling professional man that was angry with his daughter, my mom, for falling in love with a man of the working class. He refused consent to their marriage, so they eloped and eventually had a child. That would be me. The marriage failed, and the mother and child moved back in agreement they'd live by his rules. Yeah, his house, his rules. The mother became severely depressed and stayed in her room. The child was raised in the house without love from others. The twist in all this is that the home of this family was about 8 blocks from my own house. So we'd occasionally drive past the house. Every time we passed that house, I'd hear a girl calling to me, pleading for me to help her. The first few times it happened, I believed that she was real and would ask my father to stop the car because I had to help her. She was pleading loudly, but they were unable to hear her. I eventually was able to see her silhouette in the window, and she'd implore me to help, but I knew she wasn't real. She was a ghost that I could see and hear telepathically. I was very disturbed. It was disturbing for me indeed as a young child. When I was older, I learned about reincarnation. Then I understood the family was, in fact, a past life. The paradox? That ghost was me. Me in a past life, pleading with me to help me. The question, what is a ghost if it is not a soul that has remained earthbound? More in a moment. To the third wild card line we go. You're on the air. It's Ghost to Ghost AM. Good morning. Hello there. Going once. Going twice. Gone. Okay, let's move here and say Sharon. Good morning in Toronto. You're on the air.
Good morning. Hi, I'd like to tell a story about a house I grew up in Brampton.
Fire away.
My mother, brother, and I all had a lot of experiences with haunting there. Benign, sometimes even friendly, sightings, smells, and sounds. But what I want to tell you about is my father, who is a big skeptic. He sometimes couldn't deny that he heard certain things, but he really wouldn't get into it like we all were. But one time, when he and I were in our living room, he got up, had a coughing fit, being a smoker, and he had a stroke. I was a little kid. I freaked out, ran across the living room, bumped my leg into the coffee table, tripped over the dog, tripped up the steps as I was hollering to alert my mom and my brother. Everyone was in the living room fussing over him. He was unconscious, calling 911 and such. And he came out of it okay, pardon me, and about a week later, we were sitting in the living room talking about the ghosty stuff, and this time my father chose not to make fun of us. In fact, he was wanting to tell us that he was more into it than before. He was having a hard time telling us that he's changed his mind, so what he did was he told me that when he had a stroke a week before, he told me that I bumped my leg into the coffee table, tripped over the dog, and tripped up the steps while hollering. Of course, this gave me chills because I knew he was unconscious. I, yelled at him first when he fell down and passed out. I knew he was out. So, this got our attention. And he told us that while this all happened, he had an out-of-body. his experience was a viewpoint from over our mantle near the ceiling, watching the family fuss over him and the ambulance come and all. Also, an old woman and an old man were there watching everything as well and looking concerned. He said they seemed concerned. The elderly part of it confirmed some of the sounds that my parents heard, which were a very distinct sound of these velvet homemade slippers that the old people used to wear when my parents were young.
Right.
Always coming down our wooden stairs. My parents, this is the thing that my father couldn't deny when him and my mom were together, and she would hear it. She'd see in his face that he'd hear it too, but he wouldn't admit it. I have chills right now. But
well, listen, once you've been out of your physical body, as he was, there's not much doubt left, is there?
Mm-hmm.
Not really, because I mean, those skeptics, those doubters, when they leave their physical body and they begin observing the living from a non-living position, well, what's left to doubt? Then you know there is an existence that can be outside of your physical body. And so that sort of changes everything you think, doesn't it? Of course it does. First-time caller line, Rob in Toronto, you're on the air.
Hello, Art. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine.
I'm glad to speak to you. This is the first time I've ever spoken to you. What I've got to tell you is it's really strange. My aunt, this was years ago, lived up in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and our family lived in Toronto. This was one very cold winter. Around 11:30 at night, I got a phone call from my aunt asking to talk to my mother and asking the family to forgive her for all the problems she had been the black sheep of the family. And, we told her we loved her, and then, of course, we forgive her. Then it didn't make much sense, but, you know how your families are when you have a black sheep that sort of wants to make up. We found out, Art, the next day that my aunt had a heart attack and had fallen in the snow and had frozen to death that night.
Oh, my God.
But the problem was that she had done it around 9 o'clock at night.
So obviously that call was made from elsewhere.
Yeah.
Got it. These kinds of things do happen, and I'm very curious. Somebody on the other side can avail themselves of electronic communication. There is something about electronic communication, whether it be a telephone or a computer or whatever it is, that seems to lend itself to those on the other side. Now, it may be that the only medium they themselves through some other means is electromagnetic, I'm sorry. And so perhaps they're able to manifest and use electronic things as a step that would be ahead of manifestation that may take an awful lot of power, an awful lot of oomph, an awful lot of whatever it is you have or don't have enough of on the other side. I don't know. Wildcard line 1, you are on the air, Ghost to Ghost AM.
Hello, Art.
Hello there. Yes, hello.
Hi. Pleasure to talk to you tonight on Ghost to Ghost. I was working in a funeral home back in the late 70s. I was a teenager working part-time after school and worked 6 to midnight every night. I was there at night with a lady that was a licensed embalmer. I'll call her Dorothy. We had one body in the prep room that night, and he was a biker of some repute in the local area, supposedly into Satanism and other unsavory things.
Great.
And among my duties, I did things like wash the limos and the hearse and keep the casket display room nice and neat. And I was working one night. I had polished all the caskets and was vacuuming the carpet in this room. This was a very, very old building that had started out as a colonial mansion and been many decades before it turned into a funeral home. Had the old-fashioned 2-button light switches, if you remember those.
Of course.
And all the circuits in the room were powered by these switches out in the hallway, even the wall outlets. And I was running the vacuum cleaner, and suddenly, over the sound of the vacuum, I heard one of these switches click, and the vacuum cleaner died. And a second later, I heard another click, and the lights in the room went out, and I was left in the dark. I assumed that this was my coworker, Dorothy, playing games with me, because we did this occasionally, just trying to freak each other out.
Sure.
And I wasn't going to give her any satisfaction, so I went back out in the hallway, and I turned on the switches for the vacuum, and I turned on the switches for the light, and I went back in and went back to work. Not a minute went by when it happened again. Well, the same thing. I went back out, turned it on, and went back to work. And then it happened a third time. I went up to the office where Dorothy was, and I told her that I wanted to get my work done and go home for the night, and please stop playing games with me. And she, of course, protested her innocence, and so I insisted that she come back to the room with me. There was nobody else in the funeral home, and it was locked up for the night. So she and I were standing in there, and, of course, she still maintained her innocence, and I started vacuuming again. And no sooner than I started the vacuum cleaner up, it went off, and I had enough time to look up at her, standing right there face-to-face with me, and heard the light switch click, and the lights went out in the room again. And I knew that it had to be this biker fellow that was in the next room. And he obviously did not want us in there. Apparently the vacuum cleaner was bothering him. But we...
that's bad.
We looked at each other in the dark and decided that it was time to lock up and go home for the night.
You've got a deep kind of biker voice yourself, like you swallowed too many bugs on the road or something.
All the smoke.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. I don't like that because, of course, I don't think anybody really wants to think that they're still connected to their body. I mean, upon physical death, you want to be gone. You want to be out of your body, gone on to whatever is next, even if it's some sort of haunting or some sort of, barely visible or even invisible existence. That's what you want to imagine. You don't want to imagine that you're with your body that is simply, put it any other way, beginning to rot away. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hi, Art.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing good. A little cold here tonight, but not too bad.
Cold is good for these kind of stories.
Yeah, I have a spirit writing story. I used to kind of dabble in it because I'd read about it, but I didn't really think it was real. And when I did it, nothing ever really happened.
What are you talking about? This automatic writing thing?
Yeah, where you just kind of let your hand move.
Yes.
So, I never really thought anything of it. So this one time, the last time actually I ever did it, because of this incident, I noticed that when I did it, it was kind of like when you do a Ouija board, it kind of moves around in a circular kind of figure 8 pattern, and then it moves around. Well, the pencil starts moving like that, but then it started going faster and faster and faster, and I thought, okay. And then it just started like digging into the paper, and I thought, okay, this is kind of weird, I'm going to stop. And my hand wouldn't stop. It just kept digging harder and harder in a figure 8 pattern into the paper, and it was kind of freaking me out. So I thought, I'm going to stop now, and my hand wouldn't stop. It was like it wasn't my hand anymore. So I had to physically grab it with my left hand, and it was still trying to move, regardless of what I was doing. So I finally just called out and said, I don't want you here. I want you to go away. And I had to say it a couple of times before I felt like whatever it was let go of my hand. And it wasn't really that I felt anything holding my hand. It was almost like
No,
kind
I'm
of
with
a
you.
tingle.
What happened is you invited something in. It came in,
Yeah,
it
I'd
took
never
control, and it didn't want to let go.
Yeah, but the weird thing was right after that happened, and it was like the moment I kind of decided I wasn't ever going to do it again. This secondhand bookstore chain here that I go to, the one that I was going to most often, they had the sci-fi fantasy books next to the occult section. And it just happened that right after that, I went to the bookstore, like a few days later or something, and I happened to look at the occult section since it was right there. And there was this book that caught my eye, and I can't remember the exact title, but it was something about symbology or something. So I opened it up, and I was skimming through it, and like the second part that the book fell open, it said something about if you're doing spirit writing and you get a figure 8, you got an evil spirit.
Oh.
And I just thought it was freaky that was like the second page that it fell open on. And I thought, okay, that's a sign never to do this ever again. So I've never done it again. I like to be in control.
Yeah, I fully understand, Jen. So do I. That's an interesting story. It seems as though it has everything to do with intent. So it doesn't really matter whether it's a Ouija board. Obviously, when you sit down at a Ouija board, you have a certain intent. You're saying, okay, if you're out there, come on, let's rock. Or if you put a pencil in your hand or a pen and say, let's try this automatic writing thing, your intent is what? Your intent is to invite a spirit or something to take over and begin doing it. Well, in her case, it did. I think it really, really, really has to do with intent. I don't think the Ouija board in and of itself is important, nor is the pencil important. It all has to do with your intent. Be careful what you invite in. Let's go to the international line and say, hi there, you're on the air.
Hi. Is this Art?
That would be me.
Hi, Art. It's John DeBolt. I'm not speaking my last name. I was talking to you before on the other line. I didn't get to tell my rest of my story.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're actually only allowed to call one time, buddy. Just one call per customer. East of the Rockies, Joe, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. How you doing tonight?
I'm fine.
I called in to tell you a story about an angry spirit. I'm not the kind of person that has seen a lot of stuff in my life. But once when I was a child, I was about 8 years old. My mother, we lived in an apartment building about 20 miles northeast of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We lived there for some time, and we got to know a lot of the other people that lived in the building. And one of the couples that we met was an elderly Italian couple that lived down on the first floor. My dad became real good friends with their son, and they had some of our birthday parties at their apartment, that kind of thing. When the wife passed away, they decided to move, and they asked my dad if they could store some of the stuff that they needed to store in our apartment for a while. And, of course, said, sure. They, for some reason, I was an 8-year-old boy, they decided to put a chest in my room. And all they told me was, don't get in there, which I got to say really piqued my interest.
Of course.
As soon as we got sent to bed that night, the first thing I did was open up the chest and start looking around in there, and there was a lot of really neat old stuff. There was like a wedding dress, and there were some dishes and pictures, and I was really excited to just look through it all. I happened to hear my dad coming down the hall at one point in time, and I just hurriedly stuffed everything back into the chest. I jumped up into my bed, and I covered myself up like as if I was already, trying to pretend that I was in bed the whole time. And
All right, hold the punchline to this one. We're up against a break, so we'll be back with you in just a moment. 2006, Ghost to Ghost AM. That would be me. It's all you this night. If you've got a good story, the aforementioned numbers, or Send us a Fast Blast. Be sure to include your area code and phone number. If it's a good one, we'll call you. Back in a moment. All right, back to Joe in Pennsylvania. Joe, you're back on the air.
Yeah, like I was saying, I had gotten into the woman's chest, and I had messed around. They had a bunch of stuff out on the floor. When I thought I heard my father coming, I hurried up and threw everything back into the chest and closed it and jumped into bed and tried to pretend like I was already in bed. He just walked right by the door. He didn't stop, and I thought, boy, I was pretty lucky, you know. And I laid there for a second, and I thought I heard somebody whisper my name. Sort of sounded like it was sort of coming from the closet in my room. And my first thought was it was my younger sister, maybe, you know, playing with me. And I just ignored it. But then I heard it again, and I said, hey, come on out of the closet, quit messing around, you know. And I heard the third time. The name was getting louder each time. And the third time it was kind of almost insistent. It was just Joey. And I actually got up out of the bed and walked to the closet and opened the closet to make you know, to get my sister and tell her to get out of there. But the closet was empty. And I went back to my bed, and I climbed back in bed, and I was, you know, a little bit worried about it. And I heard it again the fourth time, and it sort of sounded like it was coming from behind me. And as I rolled over, I want to say it was the woman that I knew, maybe 2 feet above me, glaring at me with such an anger, just a furiousness. I can tell you that it was a smoky sort of an appearance.
Well, you had violated, it's like violating somebody's diary or something.
Yeah, apparently it was her hope chest that she had had since she was a teenage girl. Like I said, I want to say it was her, but it really didn't look like her because the woman that I knew was always very gentle and kind and smiling and happy, and it was very vivid down to where I can tell you that I could see the hair like flowing. And I mean, instantly I was out of that bed and down the hall and into my parents' room screaming at the top of my lungs, "Mom, help me, help me." I was so totally terrified. My mother panicked. She told my father to call his friend and have them take that chest right now out of the room. The next day when they had gone through it, they found out that I had broken a couple of things in a couple of the dishes when I had thrown everything back in. And my mother was pretty angry with me, but they decided not to punish me because they felt like, that had been punishment enough in itself. And I got to say, since that day, I've never doubted for a second that there is something after this life. I mean, it's as certainty as anything I could say that I know is the truth.
All right, Joe. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what it does. It makes you absolutely certain. Okay, let's see. Let's go to the first-time caller line and say, Rachel in Burbank, you're on the air.
Yes, hello. I'm a first-time caller, and I just want to say awesome to be able to talk to you. So cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so first off, I never really believed in ghosts at all, and people would tell me ghost stories, and I was always like, yeah, whatever, okay. But I started working at a restaurant in Colorado. That's where all my family is, and then I moved out to California. But when I lived in Colorado, I worked at this restaurant, and when I first started working there, one of the girls told me that the place was haunted. And I was like, okay, whatever, yeah, sure. So she goes, no, a lady came in and she did a seance and she said what happened. And then she told me that supposedly there was a girl that was murdered in one of the upstairs rooms. And then there was also a guy that was involved in some Chicago mafia of some sort. And he would come out to Colorado for vacationing, and he would come to this restaurant, and he loved it there. It was one of his favorite places. But when he was killed, they said that his ghost came back to this restaurant and it still haunts it. And he was a really big womanizer. So I was like, okay, whatever. So she told me this, and I worked there, and I'm like 3 months in now, and it was time for me to open. And they were only open in the evenings. And so I go in to open, and I am bending over to get trays because you have to put them all out on the tables first off to catch the food because it's a really fancy restaurant. So I'm bending over to get these trays out of this chest. Well, not chest, but it's like a cabinet area. And I'm bending over, and something, I swear to you, grabs my behind. That's what they told me to say. But, like, literally grabs me. And I swing around, really fast, and there's nothing there. And I'm totally, like, flustered and panicky. And I run back to the back kitchen to see, if the chef had come in yet. And I run back there, and he was just walking in the door, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, my gosh, did you just get here?" And he goes, "Yes." And I was totally, like, panicking. I was like, because I've never heard of even them, like, making physical contact of any kind. So I called my mom immediately, and was crying to her. And I was like, "I can't believe this happened." And so she called her friend. And her friend said that, yes, she knows a lot about ghosts or whatever, and she goes, that is true. They had made some kind of physical contact. They had been able to. So, but that's pretty much my story. But now I believe when I hear stories like that, because I used to not. So.
Well, I appreciate the story, Rachel, and I'm going to have to think a little bit about what that says about physical urges. Now, as far as I always knew, they were inclusive of those in bodies, but maybe not. That's really wild. I wonder, everybody's always asked about sex on the other side. Maybe we just got an answer. I don't know. Wildcard line 4, Rebecca in Chicago, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. Pleasure to talk to you. Well, I've got a story about a friend of mine that believes about 32 years ago this happened, that she and her husband saw an apparition in the middle of the night. And we lived in an apartment building, and they lived right next door to me, apartments side by side. And one morning she came over, and she was visibly shaken, and she asked me, "Did you smell anything burning during the night?" And I said, "No, what's going on?" And she said that she and her husband were woken up in the middle of the night by a smell of something really bad burning.
Boy,
And
a
they
lot of
jumped.
that. I'm getting a lot of that tonight.
Yeah, well, they jumped up out of bed and headed towards the hallway to, exit out of the apartment, supposedly. And she said as they got into the hallway, they saw a really large, kind of tall, dark figure. And she said she felt a great sense of evil and harm at that time. And she said that they're both of Hispanic descent, Catholic, very devout Catholic, and they fell to their knees. And she said they started praying and they were crying, and she said that all of a sudden it just disappeared. Well, she said earlier that day they were unfortunately in some financial troubles, and her husband had said that he would sell his soul to the devil to help them get out of their financial bind.
Oh my God.
And she was convinced that the devil had come to collect. So
Never,
I still
ever,
get chills.
ever say anything like that.
Never, no. No. I said you never say anything like that.
I certainly appreciate your call. I think that once you make such a deal, whether you say it out loud or just think it, that the deal is done. I don't think there's any going back or canceling deals of that sort. I really don't. I think that's we'll just leave it alone. You're on the air from Redding, California. Albert, hi.
Hi, how are you? Okay, good. I have a brief ghost story. I once lived in a very small apartment, and I used to have weird things happen. Things would move around by themselves. And anyway, one night I walked into my living room, and right by my door, I saw a female ghost just standing there looking at me, and she was wearing some kind of dress from another century. She looked very ancient, and she was very pale and white. And as I looked at her, she just slowly faded away. And some time went by, and one night I used to always turn my phone ringer off at night so it wouldn't wake me up. I turned it off, went to bed, woke up some time later hearing the phone ring. When I answered, there was no one there. I turned it off again, went to bed, the phone rang again, got up, and there was no one there. And then it happened a third time, and the third time I said to myself as I was going to, I turned my heater off too, by the way, I forgot to say that. And it was an old heater where you'd have to turn a lever to turn it off. And I said to myself, wouldn't it be interesting if I wake up and the heater is on? And that's exactly what happened. I woke up and the heater was on. So I went out there and turned it off. And then I finally fell asleep, and I had a dream where there was a storm, a really bad storm in my apartment complex. The wind was blowing intensely, and this female ghost appeared to me, and she said that she was just passing by, and she was the one that did those pranks. And anyway, a little bit of time went by, and I asked the managers and maintenance men if they had any knowledge of a graveyard being in that area, because I know that those kinds of things tend to happen around graveyards and cemeteries, and they all said they had no knowledge of any graveyard or anything. And about a year went by, and I heard on my local news that they were building a Walmart right next to my apartment complex. There was a field right outside my window of my bedroom, and they were building this Walmart, and they had to stop construction because they found a sacred Indian burial site right there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. It was just right outside my window. So I don't know if that woman had anything to do with the graveyard there, but I think that there might be a link,
Could be, could certainly be. Again, it unnerves me to imagine that we are required to remain in the immediate vicinity of our bodies. I don't like that one at all. When it's a house, that's not so bad. You can imagine a house. You can even imagine an area, but you don't want to imagine remaining with your body or something like that. And so many stories seem to sort of point in that direction. West of the Rockies, it's Alicia. Is that correct, in Miami?
That is correct, Mr. Bell. How are you this evening?
Just fine.
My story was back in 1982 in Chicago, Illinois. It was like October, early October, and it was a beautiful Indian summer, couple of days, and it was a Sunday night, and it was beautiful, magnificent weather, and my husband and two children were coming home, and the people next door had company, and the kids were outside, but it was about 10:30, quarter to 11. It was really late. It was a school night, and I told the kids they couldn't play, and I put them to bed. A little while later, in the back of the house, we had this room that we used as a television room for the kids. We hear a knock. It had big windows, and we hear a knock really hard. And I said, that's, the neighbor's kids trying to get, our kids' attention. Don't worry about it, honey. And we hear the knock again. So my husband gets up, not too happy, and I was pregnant with our third child, and I was wobbling out, chasing behind him for him not to, make a scene with the kids. They didn't realize it was late at night. And he turned the corner from the kitchen into the dining room to go to that back room, and as I went to turn the corner, he backed straight into me, pale as a ghost, like terrified. So I didn't know what he was seeing, but he was in law enforcement, and he had his gun, and I said, I've never said that. I said, get the gun, pull the gun, just shoot it. And he's just nodding his head no. And he looked at me, and he said, what I just saw, my gun will do nothing. So then he starts walking toward the dining room. Now, I'm crying, wanting to be upstairs with my children, but terrified I was like stuck to him. I was not going to be alone.
Sure.
And he went into the dining room, and whatever it was knocked again, and then he went into that back room, and I was with him, and there was a door that went into the yard from that room, and he went to open it. So I started screaming, please don't let it in. I don't want whatever you saw. I don't want it in if you can't kill it. And he went and he opened the door, and so then I thought our life is ruined. I'm crying all over the place, hanging on to him, and he looked at me and he said, would you be quiet? I saw a woman standing in front of the window, knocking from the inside. I think she wants to get out.
Oh, my God.
And it was like, he said it was like all black. And I said, well, like a nun? And he said either very long hair or a nun. And he said you could see through her. She was like transparent. She wasn't completely solid. He said, but her right hand, she was just standing in front of that window with her right hand up, knocking. And I heard the knocks. I did not see her, thank goodness. And it took
I
me
wonder
years.
if she made it out.
Well, about 7 or 8 months later, we were in the Lions Club, and it was our turn to have a meeting at our home. And one of the members had brought a professor from the University of Illinois who was thinking about joining the Lions Club, and he was sensitive and he could channel people. And the man called me the next day, and he said, I don't know if you're a believer or a non-believer, but, the friend I brought, can channel people. And he says there's a woman all in black that walks through your house. Yeah.
I'm sure that did it for you.
Huh? Oh,
I said,
did
I'm
it
sure
do it?
that did it for you.
My God, yes.
Yeah.
After the guilt of leaving my poor children sleeping upstairs alone and me being too scared to run up there, yes.
Been okay ever since?
Yeah. I mean, I never saw her, and she didn't knock again. I figured if I don't hear the knock, we'll live through this.
Maybe she made it out. All right, thank you very, very much. How can you listen to these stories one after another, and not begin to believe, even if you have not seen with your own eyes? And I know it's so easy to be skeptical, and it's so easy to blow it off if you haven't seen with your own eyes. But even listening to a program of this sort, one after another, you don't honestly think all these people are making this up, do you? Susan in Florida? Bet you're not making up your story.
No. No. Hi, Art. I would like to share with you and with the Coast audience how I ended up talking to a ghost. Well, it wasn't any plan of mine, but it just ended up that way. Sure. And the event that started this, I was watching TV, I was watching the news, and they had a special report come on that a local high school, a 17-year-old student had stabbed another student that was 15 years old. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And they showed they were rushing him off to the one that was stabbed. They arrested the one and they were rushing the other one off to the emergency. And I thought, oh gosh, that's awful. And then they showed students at that school, some of them had gathered around a flagpole and they were praying. And then they showed they were having football practice before all this happened, and all the football players out there just knelt on one knee and they were praying. And when I saw that, I thought, I should be praying too for this young guy. And I started to pray, and I just closed my eyes, and just in a few minutes, all of a sudden, it was like I was transported somehow to the emergency room where they were working on this young guy.
Wow.
And I saw his spirit, the spirit of this young guy, standing by his body, watching them work on him. And he turned I don't know what I looked like. I must have looked like a spirit too. Nobody noticed me or anything. And he turned to me and he said, I'm afraid to die. I don't want to die. And I don't know. It was like I just felt so bad for him, and I had been praying for him. And I said, you don't have to be afraid. Jesus is the way. He's the truth and the life. And if you're absent from the body, you're present with the Lord. And he was still frightened, so I'm talking to him while they're working on his body over here. And I'm hearing some of the things they're doing, like there was some kind of a suction thing going on.
Uh-huh.
And
listen, we're just about out of time. Did he make it?
After I talked to him, it was all of a sudden like he got sucked back into his body. He says, I've got to go now. But he said,
I've got to go now, too. You hold on. We'll come back to you, dear. Stay right there. This is Ghost to Ghost AM. Ghost to Ghost AM, indeed, 2006. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. It certainly is a pretty spooky night. We'll get back to Susan in Florida right after this. The reason I was asking Susan whether he made it or not at the last moment before the break was because I had to know, since you were there while he was observing everybody working on him, did he, after he came back to the world, remember you?
Well, what happened was that, like I say, they were working on his body and I could hear the noises. And it was getting to a point, I think, where they were going to kind of revive him a little bit because they were saying he's choking on his blood and they were doing some kind of suctioning or something. And he was still afraid, but then I told him, God can help you through this. You can trust him. And when that young man's spirit, when he said, yes, I'll do that, all of a sudden it was like there was like light that came out of his spirit. It just sort of flooded over his spirit and him. And he just had he says, now I'm not afraid. Now I know what you mean. And he says, I've got to go. And it was almost just like a vacuum cleaner or something, just sucking him back toward his body. And he was sort of half in his body and half out of it. And he said, thank you. I'll be all right now. I'm not afraid. And then all of a sudden, as soon as he said that, it was like a vacuum cleaner or something sucking me back. And it was like I opened my eyes and I thought, oh my gosh. And I looked around and here I was sitting in my living room and I thought, oh my gosh. And then I turned the TV back on to see what was going on. And about 20 to 30 minutes later, they announced on the TV that he died.
Oh, my God.
And I was sad to hear that he died, but I know that that's the weirdest sounding thing. I can't explain it except that somehow prayer must have made a bridge, that somehow spirit to spirit could communicate. And even though I'm sad that he died, I really sincerely feel that he died safely.
Yeah, it sounds like you gave him the comfort before he passed. You gave him the comfort to pass. That is really quite a story. Prayer, of course, is intent. And so she put herself right in the middle of a life and death situation. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. West of the Rockies, Zach, you're on the air.
Hello. I used to be a security guard at a cemetery, and I was in between rounds one day, and I'm in the office, and it was like the end of my shift. I'm getting ready to leave, packing up, and there's a window, a big window, that's like by the front of the office, and you could see outside in the parking lot. Sure. And I felt something like somebody was watching me or something like that, and I looked up and I saw like a foggy light, like it looked like a person, kind of like the outline of a person by the window, like a foggy type of mist, kind of. And as soon as I saw it, it moved away from the window. And I ran outside to make sure like it wasn't like a car light, like somebody pulled into the parking lot, or like maybe somebody was in there by the window. And I looked around and nobody was around. And it just struck me as weird because, I'm a little suspicious. I work in a cemetery, so, it made me think something was going on.
Well, so beyond that, though, you don't know what it was.
No, but another time I was in the back office, and I was trying to relax, like in between rounds, from checking the cemetery to make sure it's all secure, because I was a guard there. And I thought I heard voices in another room, and I went and I checked everywhere, the whole place. I checked in the front of the cemetery because I thought I heard something like somebody talking like casually, like just in another room, and I'm trying to find, the voice. And there's nobody around. It just sounded like people just casually talking too. That's the creepy part because it was kind of low.
Well, you had a creepy job anyway, Zach. Being a guard in a cemetery is kind of creepy, and it keeps taking me back. People keep mentioning these cemeteries. I don't want to think that a spirit is anywhere near its the body that it's left. That doesn't make any sense to me. With everything that we know about death, that part makes no sense to me whatsoever. Why would you hang anywhere near your body? There are so many things that we truly don't know, aren't there? Wildcard line, you're on the air. Tim in Wisconsin.
Was that me, Art?
That's you.
Oh, fabulous. Long-time listener. Good to hear you, and good to hear that you're getting along very well over in your second life dimension, shall we say, experience. But I've got a story for you that happened to me when I was a teenager. Naturally, we were kids, interested. My father gave me the book of about Roswell when I was about 13 years old. So I've been interested in all the paranormal different stuff since then. And so when we were kids, three of us, your screener said to jump right into the story. So here I go. And we were interested in, Aleister Crowley and reading all kinds of different manuals. And turned out that one of our friend's sister was involved in what evidently they call a coven, and had access to this manual supposedly written in blood and all of this stuff. And of course, again, we were teenagers, so part of this may be a little there was probably a little gleam put on it for us to get us interested in this stuff back when we were teenagers, if you understand what I mean. So anyhow, we decided to go ahead and give this a try to conjure up this being, which we had no idea what we were doing. This is kind of along the lines of the Ouija board. We had to actually go around and get some different items, some rice paper, a quill, a pen made out of a crow's feather, a lemon, a black candle, a piece of charcoal. And basically, I don't know if you want me to go into the details of how we
Just tell me what happened.
Well, what happened was after we did what this, I'll use the term recipe called for, we kind of went into a haze for about an hour and woke up and realized that about an hour's time had gone by. And what this was a supposed blood curse. And again, we were kids and we were playing around at, who was our current enemy of the week, who are we arguing with at school or something that week, so we put the names of our current enemy on this rice paper, after which you had to cut yourself and use your own blood and use this quill to write the name of this person and recite this recital while you're chanting, or chant this recital while the candle is burning and whatnot.
And so what happened to these people?
Astroth?
What happened to these people?
Well, what happened is, strangely enough, I'm friends with actually one of these people still. He's still alive. But what happened was we came to about an hour after we had started this ritual and realized, holy cow, and saw this kind of misty, kind of cool, weird feeling, and it seemed like something had happened. And what had happened in the long run, to get to what you're asking, is one of the guys, again, this was supposedly to create some sort of a blood curse on this victim that you...
Very short on time, Tim.
Okay. One guy got gout. Another guy, unfortunately, died in an auto accident through loss of blood. And the third guy moved away, and none of us, we live in a small town up here, well, it's not so small anymore, in Racine, Wisconsin. He moved away, and we've never heard from him again. But this was really about, this was, the most interesting part of the story is that about another hour transpired after we were all done, and oh well, we did this. Well, whoop-de-doo, we went down and started listening to music, and then we got a telephone call by a guy who identified himself as Maynard. And as I recall through reading and whatnot, Maynard is kind of an old 16th century name, possibly for one of like what was the name, Mephistopheles or Satan, or Maynard was one of those names that was used evidently in.
Okay, Tim, we're out of time.
Okay, well, which was strange that this guy who had no knowledge of what we did called and told us to destroy what we just created, or we would open portals and doors that we would not understand. And
Okay, well, it sounds as though it's a good thing that you ended that when you did, and that sounds also like It sounds as though you fooled around with somebody's instructions who had been playing with the craft. That story unwinded kind of slowly for us there, but can you imagine hurting that many people? The craft is real, and I would urge those of you who are tempted to play with it, tempted to do the kind of thing that he apparently did with his friends, not to do it. You really do open doors and bring in things that could affect the rest of your life, could affect other lives. It's not a game. Don't do it. Let's go to Wildcard Line 5 and Tim in Illinois.
Hey, how you doing, Art?
All right, sir.
Sorry about cemeteries for you. I mow marble gardens.
Another cemetery story.
Another What?
You're breaking up on me there.
That.
Tim? Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
All right, I caught this figure out the corner of my eye one day, and I turned back real quick and looked at it, and it was like a short, fat Abraham Lincoln. Had the hat on his head and all that. And I looked at him for a second. I kind of looked down again, and I looked up at him. He turned, he looked at me, and he smiled. And it was like he met with me in my head. He told me we were doing a good job, and the place looked good. And he turned and he just started walking away, and he just faded. And then that was it. He was gone. I mean, it wasn't like a scary ghost story or not, but I really believe I seen a ghost that day.
Well, sounds like you might have. Not all ghosts are scary, and not all ghost stories are scary. Now, we try to get the scary ones for you on Halloween, but look, I believe in life after death. I'll just sort of lay that on the table for you. I believe in life after death. I believe that it's real. And so not all ghost stories are going to be scary. Not all deaths are scary. Many are, and I think that's where the majority of the so-called ghost stories, the scary ones, actually come from. If you listen very carefully, I think you'll find that whether it's people messing with the craft, or particularly like that young fellow who had been messing with the others, it could turn out very poorly. But it doesn't mean that all ghost stories are bad. Many are just attempts to communicate. Many are attempts to let the person on the other side know you're okay. But all of them, if you add it up like a great column of math, they all add up to the same thing. Bottom line, there is life after death. East of the Rockies, you're on the air, Mike from Iowa.
Art, it's good to hear
Yes.
your voice. On Ghost to Ghost. I had an encounter with a couple of strangers back when I was a teenager and delivering the Des Moines Register. And there's, at the time, there was a new addition to the town, probably about 5 years old or so, all this string of houses southeast of town. And I always delivered the paper at 3:30 in the morning before school, and it was always pitch black. And took my bicycle up to the southeast house of the town, and I never cut through people's lawns, so I went up their gravel driveway, and turned right and paralleled the front of their house on their sidewalk, walked up the 3 steps and put the paper in their screen door, turned around and walked down the 3 steps, and then turned right to walk the sidewalk to their driveway. And I looked up, and right where I walked over was this old man wearing a wide-brimmed hat, a flannel shirt, and baggy pants and boots, and he had absolutely no color to him, and I could see right through him. And I just, well, people only say fight or flight. Well, I really disagree with that. I think there's a tertiary called frozen.
And that's what you were, frozen.
For about 10 seconds, I was just frozen. And
no, I think that's also a natural reaction. For example, if you're near a wild animal, a lot of times frozen is the best thing you can be. Running is the worst thing you can do. So frozen is perhaps okay, and is perhaps a natural reaction. It shows a non-threatening stance.
Well, it is a reaction of no action.
That's right.
It's not doing the fight or the flight.
Right, so you froze.
And I thought of a plethora of things, but what predominantly went through my mind is I just walked over that spot 15 seconds ago. So I decided I would talk to him. And I asked him his name. What he was doing is he was pumping water from an outside water pump. And he had the bucket on that nook on the spout. And he was filling the bucket with water, but it never overflowed. And I asked him, well, first thing I said was, well, I'm sorry I walked over where you are now. And I asked him his name, and I apologized. And after about 15, 20 minutes, I ran out of things to say. And my younger brother and I, back then, late weekend nights, we would watch Creature Feature and then the scarier Acre Creature Feature, which was the siding company or roofing company, I forget which. And I learned that if you ran, the monster would catch you from behind. It always happens.
Yeah, that's the way it works, all right.
I never recall someone that didn't run that got caught from behind by the monster.
Yeah, I think freezing and perhaps even getting into the conversation was the wiser of the moves you made. I think that kind of goes back to an animal instinct in some of us. When we're presented with something like that, we just freeze. And maybe that's not such a bad move. Ghost AM 2006. Time is short, so very quickly to Clint in Calgary. You're on Ghost to Ghost AM. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Just fine.
Fantastic. Okay, well, to start my story, before this happened to me, I actually didn't believe in ghosts. Like Edgar Allan Poe said, I don't believe in ghosts, but I've been scared of them my whole life. So that's kind of my attitude. I moved into this apartment with my friend Calvin when I was about 20 years old. And every night when I would lay in bed, I'd have my back to the room. I would feel like I would hear something, like maybe a breath, or I would hear like the clicking of an ankle, or a knee when somebody's walking. And every time I heard that, as I was falling off to sleep, I'd kind of look over my shoulder and there's nothing there. So I'd kind of smile and go to sleep. And that would happen like every night when I was going to bed. And one night, I was laying on my back and I had this weird feeling like somebody was looking at me. So I opened my eyes and there was somebody leaning over my bed looking at me about 2 inches from my face. And when I opened my eyes, I made like, whoa, like a noise like that. And this, what entity or whatever it was, it jumped back too, like it was scared. And it ran behind my little bookshelf in my bedroom. At the time, though, it was kind of dark in my room, so I thought I had an intruder in my bedroom. So I went behind the bookshelf, with my lamp in my hand, ready to plug whoever it was. I turned my light on and there was nobody back there. And there's no way to come out from behind the bookshelf. There's no windows or doors or anything like that. So I told my friend Calvin, the next day when it happened, and he said, if you're having a problem with something in your room, maybe just write a note and saying, I don't know who you are or what you want, but if I can help you, please let me know how. But if I can't help you, please leave me alone. So I did that. I wrote the note out on the desk, and after that, I never had any troubles. I never had any clicking or breathing or breaths or anybody looking at me in my bed. So I just thought I'd come out and tell you
Fascinating.
that
Well,
story.
I'll tell you what's interesting about that is that I've had so many stories like this, that we apparently startle them many times as much as they startle us. Not always, but so many times in these stories, the entity or the spirit or whatever it is, when it realizes it can be seen, appears to be as startled as we are. And I'm trying to put together in my head what that means. First time caller line, Chris in Nebraska.
Good morning. Hey, I wanted to share with you guys a story that kind of spooked the bejesus out of me, but at the same time was kind of a relief. I used to be an over-the-road trucker, and I was cruising down I-40 in New Mexico, and I got flagged over on the CB from another trucker that there'd been a rollover accident. And all the passengers in the vehicle had been ejected, and took a long time to get any kind of state patrol or flight for life medics or anything out there. But there was a young girl that had gone into shock, and I wrapped her up in a blanket and was holding her. And about an hour and 15 minutes later, they finally got there and got the major triage taken care of. And
My God, that is a long time.
it was a rough go. But when they finally came up and to take the girl from me, they had told me that she'd expired. She'd passed on, and I never knew it. And so I was kind of a devastating thing for me. I avoided that I-40 interstate, ran many miles out of my way just to stay out of there for a long time. I got in a hurry one night coming out of California, and decided I'd had to run I-40. And just as I passed the mile marker where that accident had happened, my little dog that had been running with me forever, never messed in a truck before, relieved himself in my passenger seat and went yipping and screaming into the back of the sleeper. And I looked into the back of the sleeper to see what was wrong with him, and he was down there cowered under my bunk. And as I looked back to the road, I noticed that there was a young girl sitting in the passenger seat of my truck.
That would be my last trip on I-40.
I scared the bejesus. I almost wrecked my truck. But she was, very, ghostly, I guess. You could kind of see through her. I could see my door on the other side through her. And she just looked at me and she smiled. And in a very, very soft voice, she said, "Thank you, and I'm okay." And she was gone.
Oh, that's an awesome story.
I pulled over and walked around my truck for a long, long time before I got back in it. But, it's, like I said, the most terrifying experience of my life, and probably the most satisfying, is just something inside that really settled. But
I hear you. Chris, thank you very, very much for the story. That is, actually, that's kind of a heartwarming story. Not all ghost stories are scary. Although I suppose no matter what, they're scary at the time. But in reflection, obviously he had done something that she very much appreciated, and she somehow made it back to say so. That was quite something. Wildcard line, Sandra in Canada, you're on the air.
Yes. My boyfriend and I were asked by friends of ours to own a fly-in fishing lodge. Now, this is about 600, 700 miles north of in Manitoba from Winnipeg, just outside the Manitoba border in Ontario. I won't name the lodge. There's a half a dozen, they're log cabin style with bunks, for the lodging for the people that come to stay there. They fish. There's 3 people, just the fishing guide, an Aboriginal man, and myself and my boyfriend. His job was to do maintenance, take care of the boat motors and, gas the boats and oil them and make sure they're running properly and maintenance around the place. My job was to take care of the cleaning of the cabins and the making of the beds and the cooking. And anyway, the Keebler people were there. So that was the group. They were from the States and they had come to fish. So the guide's job is to take them to the best fishing spots, and they catch fish and they get all drunk and everything and tell all their stories about all these big fish they caught. Meanwhile, he caught them all. But anyway, where we stayed, when all of the lodgings were filled, was the cabin. There was like a log cabin not too far from the lodging, like maybe 3/4 of a mile. And this is right out in the bush. It's all just bush, wild, wild bush. And anyway, it was August. It was really, really hot. And inside the cabin where we stayed in, there's a big wooden door on the inside, but it was so hot. There's an outside door, which is just a swinging door with this big screen in it. And the hook was on the door. And outside, just above the door, is like a lamp light, just so that you can see to go to the outhouse, to go to the bathroom.
Sure.
Okay? So I woke up wanting to go to the toilet, to go to the outhouse. And I couldn't get up. Like, I tried to get up off the bed, and I couldn't get up off the bed. I felt myself being pushed back down into sitting position. And I thought, I was just sleepy and still out of it. And I tried again, and the same thing happened. So I'm sitting there. I can move every other part of my body, my feet, my arms, my head, everything, but I cannot get up off the bed. And I looked ahead toward the screen door thinking, well, this is weird. I can't get up. I can't go to the outhouse. And as I'm looking toward the screen door, this man, an old man, not an elderly man, but an old man, walks right through the door. Doesn't open the door, walks right through the door. Not an apparition, a full body person. Turned on the kitchen light. There's an old kettle, those old ones with the wire handle and a wooden handle with the wire, with the pointy spout. It's like aluminum, and a gas stove. So he goes over, there's a water pump. He dumped out the kettle. He pumped water into a container that sat beside with a spout so you could pour that into the kettle, into the top of the kettle. He took off the lid, poured the water into the kettle, turned on the gas, and he sat down at the kitchen chair, on the kitchen chair by the table, waiting for the water to boil. He got up, he opened the cupboard door, and he took out, there's only one teacup in there with a saucer. Everything else was mugs.
Okay, not a lot of time, Sandra.
He pulls it out. He puts it on the kitchen counter. He takes down the sugar bowl. He opens the drawer, takes out a spoon. He puts the sugar in the cup. He takes the tea bag from the box. He puts it in the cup, and he brings it and he sits it on the table. Then he goes and he gets the kettle and he puts the water in the cup, puts the kettle back on the stove, sits back down, and he takes the spoon and he's squeezing the tea bag. I'm sitting watching everything he's doing. And I was really feeling scared because I could move every other part of my body, but I could not get up. I felt pressure to sit where I was sitting. And I just got up the gumption to say, who are you and what are you doing in our cabin? Because I thought it was one of these maybe Keebler people, but it wasn't anybody I had recognized.
So what did he say to you?
And he says to me, you just sit there and be quiet. I want to have my tea in peace.
I see.
So I am going, oh my God, what if this guy, like, finishes his tea and starts to get like a lumberjack t-shirt on, and you know those dark green pants that like engineers wear? He had clothes on like that, and I thought, what if he finishes his tea and starts taking off his clothes, thinking he's going to get into bed and go to sleep? So I start pounding my boyfriend with the side of my fist all up and down his back as hard as I can, right? Just pounding him. And he won't wake up. He just won't wake up. And he's
Okay, Sandra, we
normally a
got to
light
get to the end of this
sleeper.
story. We're out of time here.
Well, anyway, so the man says to me, quit hitting him. Let him sleep. I just want to have my tea in peace. And I'm like, oh my God. He finishes his tea. He gets up. He picks up the saucer. He walks to the counter. He puts the saucer on the counter. He walks to the screen door. And he turns around and he looks at me and he says, I'll leave the light on for you, and you can go and pee now. And he walks through the screen door, just like the way he came in. So I figured the native guide might know something about some kind of like history of myths or anything from that area. And I went up to him and I said, you know, like, you're going to think I'm nuts. And he goes, no, actually, I know what you're going to tell me. You saw the old man. And I said, then you know about this. He said, did he have his cup of tea? I said, yeah. And I said, and the tea bags there, the saucer, the teacup, the spoon, everything. And I said, if you were to have touched that kettle, the water was hot. Like, I know I saw what I saw. And
Well, I'm sure you did, Sandra. I'm going to have to leave it there. My guesstimation would be that this man knew you, and just what he did was he froze you to the spot, knowing otherwise what would become of him. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes. Art?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I didn't hear the first part. Anyway, I have a good story. This happened just a couple weeks ago. I live in this small apartment, one-bedroom apartment with my wife. And, see, I'm a truck driver. I drive overnight, usually, and then I'm home the next day. And this would happen to be a Saturday, and I was staying up. My wife went to bed because she had to be at work the next day. And it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting at the computer, and where I'm sitting, I can see the bedroom door. It's closed. My wife likes to sleep with the door closed. Well, as I'm browsing the internet and looking at Coast to Coast online, I, out of the corner of my eye, this apparition appears right in front of my door, and I feel this chill run down my spine. The hair on my hand stands up, and when I go to look, it just quickly disappears. I feel this strong intention from this, you know, like somebody's really peering at you, not just having a glance at you. You can feel that energy. And I thought, wow, okay. So it happened. So I go on browsing, go to bed, wake up the next morning, and my wife is a little agitated. I ask her what's wrong. She goes, last night around 2 o'clock, same time I witnessed this, there was a being in my room. It was shaking my bed. It was scaring me. And she goes, we're sensitive, and I know that we've, you know, sensed beings before, but this one is the only one that has scared me before, you know. And she was frozen. She was frozen to her bed, and she tried to scream out, but she couldn't scream. But she mentally screamed out to me, and she was just, you know, frightened. And I thought this was amazing because I saw that entity the night before, And here she is telling me what experience she had with that same entity, I assume, the next day.
Well, husbands and wives can frequently communicate with each other that way, not just husbands and wives, brothers, sisters, relatives, people who know each other and are very close are able to communicate that way.
Right. But it's pretty amazing, eh?
It is amazing. Of course it is. A lot of what we've heard tonight, what we've talked about tonight is amazing. East of the Rockies, very quickly, you're on the air. Jim in Lakewood.
Yes, hi. What happened was I rented a place. It was an older house, a downstairs house, and I remember when I closed the door when I was leaving, I could feel that, like when you have a magnet, you get like that reverse polarity. It felt like something jerked the door that said, I couldn't close the door when I was leaving, when I closed the deal with the landlady. Well, it was like a warning. And later on, what happened was I had like an infection and a blood infection. And I was in the downstairs, and the guy that rented upstairs with this lady that she was like 98 pounds and he was like 250. He beat her to death, and I listened to her die.
Oh, my God.
And I saw her apparition in my bedroom, and she said, don't come up to help me. And I thought, don't come up to help me. I thought I was like delirious because of the blood infection. Later on, the cops came the next day after he had killed her by kicking her so bad he fractured her liver, dragged her across the floor. I witnessed all of that by listening to it. Well, they said that he had upside-down crosses and this and that. But you know what I got out of that? She gave me strength. Because you know what? Right now, I am armed to say that if it ever comes again, evil ever comes again, I'm ready for it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I guess the best offense or defense, that is to say, is a good offense. All right, everybody, that's it. We're out of time. Ghost to Ghost AM 2006. I'm Art Bell. It has been my pleasure to be your host. You all have a good night. See you next year with another version.
Sunday night from the high desert dreamland on the air again. Hi, everybody. I'm Art Bell. This is going to be an intriguing program. Listening. Linda Howe, as usual. Something about Bigfoot, I think. Remember that horrendous scream? Maybe she's got it one more time. We'll find out. After airing that scream, we've been getting a lot of response, shall we say. People who have heard similar horrendous things. So that'll be Linda Howe coming up in a moment. And then Joanne Parks, the owner of the ancient Texas Crystal Skull. Max, the Crystal Skull, along with Star Johnson Moser, who's going to in some way back her up. We're going to find out. I think Star's done a lot of work with the skull. Now, Joanne is in Texas, and Star is in Missouri. So all of that is just ahead on Dreamland. And as I listened to the open, I thought I was hearing phrases of my own like the air we breathe and things that can be put in a box and things that can't. I thought, Alpine, that's the air we breathe, and it comes in a air. Of course, we will find the world's expert on crop circles and animal mutilations, and has branched out really into other areas of UFO-related phenomenon. Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, welcome to the program.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
Well, those recordings of that alleged Bigfoot scream near Snohomish, Washington, that I played again last weekend, were heard by another Dreamland listener who lives in central Utah. She said that she could not believe that in the week after hearing the alleged Bigfoot screams on Dreamland, she heard the same kind of sound near her Utah mountain home. She is asked to remain anonymous, but allowed me to record an interview with her about the sounds in an area of central Utah where friends of hers also encountered a Bigfoot-like creature in 1992.
All right.
I will call her Mrs. Smith, and here now our excerpt from this week's interview.
All right. Mrs. Smith.
I listened to your recording, and I just thought, well, that's interesting. I've heard that before on the tape, okay, that I had a friend given to me years ago, and I thought no more of it. Then we went to our property, and we were just working around there, and that evening, we went to bed. It was about 11 o'clock, and we heard this sound. And I thought I recognized it, but then I paid no attention to it, and we just went about our business and went to bed. And this creature, whatever it is, squealed all night long into the morning. And so then morning came, and I told my husband, asked him if he had heard the sound, and he said yes, and it went all night. And I said, well, that was Bigfoot. Well,
in that same central Utah area 3 years ago, a family of 5 that she knows had a face-to-face encounter with a Bigfoot-looking creature while deer hunting. The family doesn't want to be interviewed either for radio, but Mrs. Smith remembers what happened.
They saw this big buck, and it was just frozen, like it was suspended. And I told them that I have just understood that when Bigfoot comes around, that the animals just freeze. And she said that's how they perceived everything around there, like everything was in a frozen state. And so she shot the buck, and she and her husband and her children got out, and they proceeded to gut the buck. And then they felt like something was staring at them. And so they turned and looked, and here they thought this great big huge bear was hunched over. And instead it stood up, and it was a Bigfoot. It was about 100 to 200 feet from them. And he was staring right at them. And she said the arms dangled way down past the knee. And when he turned to look at each of the family members, he turned from his waist, his upper torso turned. And they described how it looked, how it had the hair on the face, how the eyes had hair except for, where the pupils and things are. And then that was it. But they just said it was about 8 feet taller. And that was about it. And they said it had between a dark and a brown hair. And then he turned and went up the mountainside, and they just stood there frozen, and they just couldn't believe what they had seen. And then finally they collected their faculties together, and the girl went over and looked at the footprints because it had just snowed, and she just said they were enormous. And I said, oh my gosh, why didn't you take a picture or something? And instead they came down into the camp, and when they came into the camp, they told their friends about it, and of course their friends didn't believe them. And then they went back the next day, and there was a deer there, and she thought it was very unusual because the rectum of the deer had been cored out.
Now, Art, historically, Bigfoot has been associated with animal mutilations in which rectums have been cored out as well as other excisions since going back to at least the early 1970s. And in one famous case near Elizabeth, Colorado, east of Colorado Springs, a rancher watched a huge, hairy Bigfoot creature run from a pasture and knock down a section of fence around his ranch house. This was investigated by several scientists, and it was reported to the sheriffs there. I talked with the sheriff and deputy when I was working on my documentary, A Strange Harvest, about this incident where this big, huge, they estimated above 8 foot tall, hairy creature had literally run into the fence, knocking it down, and the big creature ran across the yard. And not far from there, at that same time period, 2 cows had been found dead with their rectums cored out and other typical excisions of tissue associated with unusual animal deaths, raising, again, that issue, is there some connection between these creatures and maybe some of the mutilations?
Sure.
And in one of the strangest Bigfoot cases on record, the Cascade County Sheriff's Office in Great Falls, Montana, had a 1976 file on a rancher who was out hunting and encountered a creature at least 8 feet tall with reddish-brown hair, and in this case, the eyes were reported to be glowing red. The rancher shot at this Bigfoot creature, and it disappeared in a flash of light, and that sentence was officially recorded in the Cascade County Sheriff's file.
Wow.
Yeah, what is it that could disappear in a flash of light? And at the same time, the Cascade County Sheriff's Office was flooded with animal mutilation reports and eyewitnesses who were saying and reporting moving lights and discs above pastures and above their homes.
Linda, there is a name for the kind of creature that's able to take any form, isn't there?
Well, from a shamanic shamanic tradition, yes, that there would be what they would call the shapeshifters.
Yes, indeed. That's exactly what I was after. Thank
Right.
you. Shapeshifters. Is it possible that it could be that kind of creature?
Well, you know, we are in such unexplored, unknown territory. I suppose anything is possible, but I personally am intrigued by the idea that there is some connection between these creatures that have been linked in several states, even including South Dakota. Big moving lights and these strange big hairy creatures on the ground also associated with mutilations. It's possible that they may have a technological link to what we refer to as the disc craft, or someone else has postulated the possibility that we could be dealing even in some of these cases with very sophisticated holograms that somehow have been engineered to do work on this planet and that in actuality are not strictly biological and have this escape mechanism of going back into some kind of an electronic form if it's threatened in some way. All that sounds like science fiction and highly speculative, but the rancher went far enough to call the Cascade County Sheriff's Office and report that he had shot with his .30-06 rifle right at this huge creature in front of him and that it disappeared in a flash of light.
I don't suppose you still have that sound, do you?
Yeah, I do, and if you guys would like to hear it one more time.
One more time. I'm telling you, folks, get out your recorder quickly, hit record. You've never heard a sound like this, and if you ever do, you'll be running. I sure would be. So one more time.
Here we go, and as you listen to it, just ponder this question that it remains to the show. Could these sounds and these Bigfoot creatures be part of the UFO phenomena? Here we are.
Now listen close.
There you have it.
Linda, there's something about that one. I don't know what it is. It just sends a shiver right up my back.
Yep, and everyone who's ever heard it knows that they're hearing something that is distinctly not a cat, not a wolf, not a coyote.
No, and I might have even imagined it had glowing red eyes. I'd be gone. Listen, Linda, I want to give you a little news on the Roswell front.
Right.
On my syndicated weekly program, I interviewed Ray Santilli from London.
Great.
Spent about 30 minutes with him, and I was sort of impressed with the guy because he unabashedly will say he's coming at this from a commercial point of view. He's not a ufologist. He's a guy who's working on a film about Elvis Presley, for heaven's sake. Ran into the film, and I found, his easy admission of all that to be credible. I don't blame him. That's not saying that the photos are real, but then he gave me permission, Linda, to publish those 5 photographs in my newsletter.
Right, that George Wingfield and I talked with our Dreamland audience about from Seattle.
I've done a little enhancement work on those photographs, and I'll tell you, Linda, I'm not a ufologist. To me, it's very strange and eerie that this creature is sort of human, but not quite human.
Right. I think everybody has had that reaction. I think one person said, well, this is sort of what I always thought an alien would look like.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
I did.
That's right. You did, but somebody else said that to me also.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, look, a wonderful report as always. Do you know anything about crystal skulls? This is new territory for me. I've got no idea what I'm about to be talking about, Linda. What do you know about a crystal skull?
Yeah. There have been at least 2, if not more, that have surfaced in this century. The most famous was, I think it was taken from a dig in Guatemala.
That's where this one we're going to be talking about came from.
And it is perfectly machined. I believe that one even has moving teeth in the skull. And the big question has been, could this be a modern 20th century creation to be planted to cause a big hoax? That is what some people argued. However, others others who were associated with that dig and that find insist that where the skull was found was associated with artifacts and layers that simply defied the 20th century explanation. And then, if it is prior to the industrialized age, how could anyone in past centuries have taken one solid piece of quartz crystal and carved it with the fineness of this skull, which you probably have a photo of?
I do.
And do so that even the teeth, as I understand it, could move. I have never held this in my hands. I have talked with people who have, and they say that there is something eerie about its perfection.
Yes. All right. Linda, next week again from Philadelphia.
Yes, I'll be back here.
A great report. And do you want to give out any information quickly?
Well, I'm always looking for reports on Bigfoot, mutilations, abductions, crop circles, all of the unusual, unexplained phenomena, and I would love to hear from people at my fax number, area code 215-491-9842, or please write to me at Post Office Box 538 in Huntingdon Valley, Pennsylvania, zip code 19006. I always keep confidences, and I only share the names of people who give me permission, and the big value is getting reports and getting the information.
Linda, thank you. Talk to you next week.
Okay, Art.
Linda Moulton Howe, pretty generally acknowledged to be the world's expert on crop circles and animal mutilations. Many of you have no idea there is a Senate bill right now, really an existing, introduced Senate bill that will establish a new money, colored money, different colored, multicolored money, ugly no doubt. But that's not the big news. The big news is we get a two-tiered money system. That means one currency used inside the country, another one outside. Now, my sponsor, North American Trading, will send you a copy of this Senate bill free of charge. Now, why would they want to do that? Well, the answer is really a good marketing ploy. They sell gold, and believe me, after you've read this bill and you know what's coming, you'll be interested, and they know that. So it's easy. Call them. They'll send it to you free of charge. The number is 1-800-877-9799. That's 1-800-877-9799. North American Trading. And just try and make use of the last couple of moments before the bottom of the hour to go to Joanne and Star. We'll do that out of the bottom of the hour, fresh. I've got some information you need. I just talked a moment ago to Linda Moulton Howe about the Santilli pictures, which are going to be published in our newsletter. These are 5 separate photographs of what purports to be an alien creature being autopsied. And there's been a great deal of talk about it. I've interviewed Mr. Santilli. We have enhanced versions of these photographs available as of about an hour ago on our bulletin board system. I repeat, enhanced copies of these photographs available on our bulletin board system. In addition, they will be published in our newsletter. So there are 2 ways to get them. To call our bulletin board is area code 702-727-1709. You've got to have a computer and a modem, and you can download the photographs free of charge at area code 702-727-1709. We well understand most of you don't have a computer. So in the next issue of our newsletter, we're publishing all 5 photographs by special permission from Ray Santilli in London. If you want the newsletter, it is $29.95 a year. As long as you order now, you'll get the issue with the photos. Have I said enough? To get the newsletter, the number is 1-800-917-4278. That's 1-800-917-4278. Or send a check or money order for $29.95 to Newsletter, 744 East Pine Street, P-I-N-E, Central Point, Oregon, zip code 97502. Newsletter, 744 East Pine, Central Point, Oregon, 97502. Max, the Crystal Skull, is next. In just a moment. Should be an interesting one. Mrs. Edwards she's a female. She's going to love flower. Joanne, you were going to tell us, we got a couple of minutes here. The scientists, what have they found out?
Sure. Clyde C. Snow, who's a forensic anthropologist, and Max was in the state coroner's office there in Oklahoma City, they have studied it. Betty Pat Gatlett, who pioneered putting faces on skulls, she has studied it, and they said whatever carved this had such a high technology of just what the human skull was that it's just almost impossible to duplicate. This one's 18 pounds and 2 ounces, and it's anatomically correct from one side to the next. It's carved with 28 teeth with wisdom teeth carved in.
Wow.
And it's got the pineal, what they call the pineal gland. Beneath it, it's the only ultra skull, meaning that there's an ultra indention beneath it. And what that is, it's got the mastoid bone that it sits back on, and that ultra indention is the medulla oblongata that connects our neck to our spinal cord. So everything that we possess in our skull, Max possesses in his, and it's all in the right spot.
Ooh, that's...
Plus, it also has major inclusions that goes down the cheek line, and these inclusions are so great that they come up through the surface. Where the surface is slightly cracked open, you can put your fingernail inside of some of these cracks. So this is not considered really the type nor quality of a quartz crystal that a crystal carver would use or could use to carve into with diamond tip tools. They would pass over any number of these major inclusions, and it's going to instantly shatter.
Well, they wouldn't have had diamond tip tools back then anyway,
they didn't,
right?
And that's two reasons why that what they know is they realize that the Mayans use them in their ceremonies. But again, they're not believed to be created by the Mayans for those two reasons, because they did not possess diamond tip tools that we know of, and there's no crystal mines in any Mayan site.
Do you want to say something, Star?
Well, there's so much to say.
All right. Well, then I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll hold it for when we come out of the top of the hour here. But let's put it this way, Star. You've worked with Max very closely.
Yes.
And I've got two literate ladies here. So, Star, I'm going to just ask you, in your opinion, is Max the real thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I've been learning from Max, I can scarcely find the words to describe. That I will say that my entire life has been totally changed since Max came into my life.
That's a pretty serious statement, Art.
Yes, it is.
You should see the letters I get when Max appears to people in dreams and what he's done for all of these people.
Well, I once saw a movie about a healer, and it was a wonderful movie, actually, and I can't recall the name of it right now, but everybody in the community, once they figured out that she could heal, demanded to know where the power came from.
Mm-hmm.
And if it didn't come from God, they said, then she must be a witch, and they damn near burned her at the stake. So you two potentials, hold on there just a moment. We'll come right back to you. Really ancient crystal skull with powers, and we're going to find out about all that in just a moment. Back now to Joanne Parks in Houston, I believe, and Star Johnson. Star, where are you?
I'm in St. Joseph, Missouri.
St. Joseph, Missouri.
Yes.
All right. Again, recalling the movie I was talking about, I don't remember the name of it, but it starred Ellen Burstyn. I think it's Burstyn. And she was able to heal.
Oh, I remember that.
Do you? It was actually
movie.
a beautiful movie.
Yes, wonderful movie.
However, as you recall, and that's what people are going to want to know here, where this power comes from. And if it doesn't come from God, then look out.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up, because I've written several articles for magazines, and I do believe that Max, I believe that all good things come from God. So I do believe that Max is a gift from God. So I feel that God has given us many gifts and tools in many forms, such as our preachers, our Bibles, our books, to help us all along our own spiritual path of truth.
And I believe that Max is simply one of those gifts and tools given to help us along for those who wish to open their heart and minds and receive.
Do you concur with that, Star?
I absolutely do. And I would like to share with you, if I might, a channeling that I received through Max that states very clearly why Max has come to us.
All right.
And this is what I received. I come to you openly in mind and in heart. I come to you through the corridors of time. I come to you of infinite love. Oh, turn not away in fear or limitation. Oh, turn not away. Open your mind and enter the doorway. Cast off all entanglements of time. Open your body to the light of the heavens. Open your pathways to the light of the stars. Open your gifts to share with each other. Open your senses to the sound and the light. Open your being to the unified presence. Reach out to each other. Divine reflection. Divine love.
Well, that sounds like a very beautiful, elongated version of Rodney King's Can't We All Get Along?
That should be it.
Is that about right? All right.
Sure. I get letters from all over the world. People come here from all over the world because they feel that Max has something to offer them. They have said that they feel a healing sensation from him. They stress serenity. They even say they have peace of mind and very loving thoughts.
Does everybody get along with Max?
Everybody that I come in contact gets along with Max. There have been a few people who have shrugged and left because they have fear. They have limitations. They have stuff inside of them that they just can't handle because of the skull. Now, this is bad connotations on a skull. This is, say, it's only been within, say, the last several hundred years that the skull has been used, let's say, as a symbol of evil. And why? Well, it's brought on by pirates, modern man. It's a conditioning effect, such, as using the mark on the bottle of toxic poison.
Yes, it
But
is.
if you read and go back, very back in history, the skull was used as a keeper of knowledge. They have the wall of skulls, and I believe, why a skull? People say, why a skull? Well, I believe it looks like us because it represents us. It represents mankind. It's something that we can communicate with because it looks like us.
With the dated age, this skull could not, there was no technology at that time, was there?
Not at all. They have no, this is a mystery like Stonehenge and the Sphinx and the ancient pyramids. They do not know how these skulls are created. They're also cut against their natural axis. They're cut against their grain. So scientifically, it doesn't exist.
That's odd. All right, I've got a question by fax, and we'll get to the phone shortly. Dear Art, would you ask your guest if the crystal skull that she describes is similar in appearance to the one shown at the beginning of the TV series Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World?
That one is that skull is the one in the British Museum.
It is.
Yes. Max is not clear like that. This Max shows that he's gone through many, many earth changes. What happened is, and what causes these earth changes and these cracks is that over eons and eons of time, the rock that Max was carved from, it looks like, it appears that it's gone through about, maybe 5 or 6 major earth changes like volcano eruptions, heat, and it cracked open, forming these major inclusions and leaving these different earth changes looks in them, where there's parts cloudy and parts changes looks in them, where there's parts cloudy and parts are clear. And then it would take literally hundreds of thousands of years for each one of these inclusions to repair itself. And whatever it carved right through the inclusions.
Oh, boy, that is strange.
So those are clear, and this is what got the scientists so intrigued, not because of Max's clearness and lack of inclusions, it's because of these inclusions that's got them so completely baffled as to how he was created.
Well, so people come to you in wheelchairs, people come to you with various ailments, and what do you do? How do you handle it?
I let Max do his own work. Max is, I tell people.
Do you charge people for this?
I do not charge people. If they want to leave me a donation, also I have videos, I have documentaries on the skulls, I have books, I have little skulls that stay with Max to pick up his energies. If they want to buy something, that's fine. But no, I don't charge people to come here. I tell people that Max is a personal experience, and that's what he is. He's helped many, many people in various different ways. I can never predict. It's just like going to Lourdes and getting into the water. What's going to happen? You just don't know. Max is a very, very personal experience, and he's helped many, many people in many ways. But all of them, every one of them, is a personal experience. I have many people come here that are just not sick. They just know that Max is a calling. He opens up the key to the mind, letting some unseen energy force was there, but it just needed a little push. He seems to answer questions for people that, for some reason, those questions would come before. Now, these are some of those explainable things. I don't even begin to understand Max because of how people relate to him. It's astonishing.
So are you going to continue along the same path? I mean, you tour with Max?
Well, for the first 5 years, before we always called Max again a closet skull, since we didn't know once I didn't know particularly really what I had, it was a learning process, and I had to learn completely about what Max is, what he does. He seems to guide me through dreams. He does say he wants to be with the people. He loves people. He wants to help people. And I didn't go anywhere for the first 5 years. People came to me, and I went out a couple of times a year. But just in the last year, I've had so many people calling and asking me, please bring Max to our organization, our UFO show, our bookstore, our museum, that I started going out with him 2 or 3 times a month.
All right. Has Max been, I mean, he probably has bad dreams if Max has dreams about closets. I mean, have you elevated him out of the closet?
Oh, yes, absolutely. He's out of the closet in everybody's heart, and that's what he's going to stay.
All right. I would like to begin opening a couple of lines and taking a couple of questions. I am not exactly what you would call an expert in skulls, so I don't even know the right questions.
Yeah, I'm not an expert either, but I'm just going to tell you what I believe.
All right, good enough for the both of you then. Let's see what we've got here. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joanne and Star.
Yeah, glad to talk to you. I'm very interested in the healing aspect. How serious of cancer and that has it healed? As far as maybe TB, has it healed TB? Okay. What serious diseases have it healed?
When I was working with the healer.
Just a sec. Where are you calling?
From K-Ram, St. Louis.
St. Louis, all right.
Okay. When I was working with the healer, all types of people come from all over the world. We worked with cancer people. He worked with my own child. They gave her 3 months to live. She had osteogenic sarcoma, and she was 12 years old and had her left leg amputated to the hip. And it was only 1,500 children live in the United States. The healer worked with her. She touched the skull. They did keep her going, and the tumors completely remissioned from her lungs, and she lived for over 3 more years very well. However, the healer, when he got sick and he could no longer do his healing work, she became sick again and passed away when she was just 16 years old. They've healed all kinds of things there. But I never know what's going to be healed. It's just people. It's almost like the healing comes from within the person. The power of the skull is the healing is within the person who holds the belief system.
May I say something because I do spiritual healing with Max?
Yeah.
That what I feel is that Max is programmed with the wisdom of the ancients through sound and light, and that he holds the divine order in there. And so when we can connect the person's energy fields back into the divine pattern, into the divine balance and the divine order, so that the person's energy works balanced and correctly, that then the body has what it needs, has the power of the light to be able to overcome disease.
Okay, these are the things that I hear people who do acupuncture, I hear people who do chiropractic, I hear people who do all these sorts of things say roughly the same things, that it puts you back in line or puts you in line with some greater force. Are these all similar things?
Yes,
The
they
healers
are.
that I worked with did work, the red hat, the llama, they did work through the meridian or acupuncture points of the patient's body.
I work through what is called the axiotonal grid system, which is that invisible network of light, the pathways of light that connect all of the subtle bodies from the without to the within, and from the above to the below.
All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joanne and Star. Hi.
Hi.
Where are you?
In Medford, Oregon.
Oh, Medford, Oregon. All right.
Yes. The question I have is that as far as the scientific measurements of the skull and all that,
right?
The question is that what scientific proof do you have on the power of the skull?
Well, here's what I think. I go by all the letters that I get, and by the people, what people tell me what goes on. I cannot prove that Max does what people say he does. I believe it, just like I cannot prove that I have a soul, but I believe it.
Well,
all right. Max does exactly what people says he does.
Okay, Joanne, let's try it from this point of view. You say there have been healings.
Mm-hmm.
These are people who no doubt are ill, and they've been to the doctor. They've had x-rays, they've had every manner of test, and so that's pretty well documented. They're sick one way or the other.
Yes, and what they do, they tell me that they receive a healing, but they never send me any documentation proof of it. They just said, Max has done this for me, Max has helped me this, and then, of course, a lot of people, I do believe that Max is here for mankind's spiritual growth, so for some reason he seems to touch their hearts and heal them in some spiritual way.
Right, but it would be nice to have a little documentation.
Right. I've had lots of people tell me in letters they've been healed for serious things. One person walked in and said she hadn't heard in 3 weeks, and her ear popped open the minute she got in Max's energy field, because he gives off energy in a 2.5 block radius.
Now, see, that's interesting. Going back to this movie I was talking about, I recall that when Ellen Burstyn would put her hand on somebody, there would be an actual exchange of heat, a feeling of heat.
That's what they feel off of Max. People who are tuned to the crystal feel this big heat that comes off of him. I don't even try to explain it. I'm telling you that I don't know why these things happen, but it just seems to happen. Are we all nuts? Are we all seeing the same thing?
What about it? You two, have you both been checked out?
Well, yes, you know what? I get a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists here, and I used to wonder, are they checking me out? Are they checking Max out? And they all just say, no, you're right, and they're right on cue, and they love Max too.
Huh.
Absolutely.
What about you, Star? Have you had moments of when you wondered about yourself?
Well, certainly, because when you're dealing with the unseen forces and the supernatural, what we call supernatural occurrences, of course you're going to wonder about what is real.
Yes.
But what has been just incredible in this journey has been meeting other people who are sharing the same kinds of experiences.
Oh, exactly.
All right, you two, hold it right there. Max, the crystal skull is our subject. If you want to get in, we'll give you the numbers in a moment. Joanne and Star, are you both there?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, question by fax from Honolulu, Hawaii. Are all skulls made of clear quartz, or are skulls made of, I think it says, fluorite or amethyst or other crystals?
I know of the ones that are made from the clear quartz, like Max, and then there's an amethyst skull in a private collection in San Jose, California, one in San Jose, Mexico. These are in private collections. They're small, and they're made of rose quartz. I think that Max also goes to the Native American Indian ceremonies. And one of the indigenous elders there said they had one. It was black quartz, a black skull. And these people, the Native Americans, also talk about the skulls in time. He goes to the sweat lodge, the medicine wheel, the sacred pipes. And indigenous elders from all over the world have talked about the skulls. They say they come from the Star People.
All right, the Star People. Interesting. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joanne and Star. Where are you calling from, please? Whoops. Let's try this again. Are you there? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Where are you?
This Dark Bell show? Or?
Yes, it is. Dreamland, sir.
So I was wondering, what do you think about these people in Chicago that sit in a room and are scared to open a window or a door and die in there because they figure somebody would rob them?
Well, that is not the subject of the discussion this evening. Those are people with a very special disease. And maybe Max would help people like that. I don't know. they're literally, I can't recall the name of it, but they've got to remain in the house. They're afraid to go out of the house. Does Max help with that kind of thing?
Max can help. Like I said, he's a personal experience. When people come before him, they have to just make their request, and whatever happens, happens. I've seen all kind of things happen. In fact, he will change colors. I've had him on display at the Whole Life Expos, and he'll start turning pink.
I've heard that, and there are people who have seen things like UFOs in Max, too, aren't there?
Yes, it's felt like many people. I've had psychics from all over the world.
So it's Max is kind of a conduit for almost everything. All right.
Exactly. They feel that the rock before it was carved has picked up images and vibrations and sound occurring around it.
All right, hold it right there. Hold it right there. We've got a break. We'll be right back.
From Phoenix?
Phoenix, yes, sir.
Yeah. I was just curious if either one of the ladies tried to find, besides get answers in regards to some of the things that, future things that might happen. You know we know what we're talking about.
All right, yeah, sure. I can even amplify on that one. Ladies, I have a good friend whose name is Gordon Michael Scallion.
Mm-hmm.
Either one of you know the name?
I know the name.
You both do. All right. Gordon Michael Scallion has made some incredible predictions. Has Max given anybody the ability to, or has Max caused anybody to look into the future? And if so, what has been told?
To me, no, I don't believe that Max, for myself, is used as like a crystal ball. I do believe he's mainly for a person's spiritual side and their heart and their body and their mind and their soul. Now, several people have said that Max has said that we have to clean up our acts, that he's here for a definite purpose to help mankind and to help him to move along their own path. But, Star Mike can answer a little bit, elaborate on that some.
Well, what Max has shown me is that which we are moving towards.
Oh, so in other words, Max has shown you. What?
Yes, many people. He has shown many people things.
All right, Star. Having said all the nice words about what Max would like us to do, if we don't, what does Max predict?
I don't look at any negativity or fear when I look into Max. I only look at the love and the increase in our awareness and consciousness and oneness. That is the level that I tap into Max for.
Max has shown you, you said, the future.
That which we're moving towards, yes, in our path back home. What I believe is that we are ascending, that we are going back from whence we came. And Max has given me glimpses of the mansion worlds.
I'm sorry, the mansion world?
The mansion worlds.
What are those?
Yes, of the higher multidimensional levels that are the promise, the kingdom of heaven. These are the kinds of things that I've seen. And
as described, for example, by Robert Monroe, that sort of ascension?
Yes. Yes, I believe that it's like moving up on a pyramid and coming into greater and greater levels of oneness.
Most people who look ahead see many possible futures, not all of them necessarily pleasant. You either avoid hearing or listening or thinking about that, or...
Well, if a lot of people like to focus on fear and earth changes, and the earth is always changing. I mean, I was in California during all the fires. I was in the Midwest during all the floods. I've been in California during earthquakes, And undoubtedly, there's a shifting of form that is happening, a purification and a cleansing. And we can choose to look at all of these changes, which have always been and always will be, with fear, or we can, look at them with more open eyes.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out, I understand that you're trying to remain positive.
Oh, yes.
And I commend you for that. But, again, so many people, intuitives, say that we're headed down a very terrible path, and that it does not have to be the future, and that the future is dependent on our behavior.
Exactly. Yes, if we focus on love and oneness, then that's what we are creating as co-creators.
I appreciate. Okay, I
that's
appreciate.
That's what I believe. That if we focus on negativity and fear, then that's what we're going to create.
I'm with
thoughts
you.
Are things.
Yes, Star. But a pragmatic, cold view of what's going on around us right now, societally, economically, politically, boy, you name it, it's a mess. And arguably getting messier. Earthquake activity, strange weather, all the rest of it seems to be intensifying. If the future is nothing but a bunch of multi-dimensional mansions and all looks cool, then why are we in this mess?
I believe that the lid is being blown off, all of the denial and all of that which has been held inside and stuffed and not looked at for generations and generations, and that all of that is coming out now, that it can be healed.
Fascinating. All right.
That's what I believe.
Stay right there. We'll be right back to you. Lines are open, and we'll be back to you all. Here's so. All right. A lot of people are obviously taking this very seriously. Here's a fax from Anchorage. Art, in April of '86, I had the opportunity to spend some time with the crystal skull in the Museum of Mankind in London. I had known of these skulls since the early 1970s, but had very little information about them. I'm a sensitive. The only information given on the skull was that it came from Mexico. It immediately drew me to it. There was a tremendous power about it. Looking into the eye socket seemed to sort of pull you into it. There was an energy consciousness imbued in it. Is that what you generally hear, Joanne?
Exactly. I hear these same stories over and over again. Exactly.
I guess I was trying, and I'll try one more time, to delineate between sort of a psychic in other words, I'm trying to find out whether there's the real power in Max, which you both seem to be insisting there is, or whether it's people believing in Max. I mean, I've understood the whole basis of voodoo was that you could be hurt even by somebody if you believed they could hurt you.
Exactly.
Conversely, you can be helped by somebody if you believe they can help you.
Right. That's what I think it is. I believe the power is within the person who holds the belief system. For me, that's not for other people. That's just for me speaking.
But see, that's taking away from the argument that there is a real and separate power within Max. Or is it
There
both?
still might be. There certainly could be. But this is what we call differences of opinion.
Well, that's true. On the west of the Rockies line, on the air with Joanne and Star. Hello there. No, you're not. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
Is this Art Bell?
Yes.
Oh, let me turn the radio down.
All right, do it quickly. We've only got about a minute here. Do you have a quick question, sir?
Yeah, his name is Jim. I'm calling from Reno.
Okay, Jim.
I used to live in San Francisco for a number of years, and I went to see a psychic in Pinole. His name was Nick Nocerino.
That's Nick.
Yes, okay.
Is this the same man that Joanne Parks was speaking of?
Yes.
Oh, may I ask Joanne a question?
Yes.
Joanne, could you elucidate on whether this was the man, I think you said earlier, that this Max had instructed you to seek out?
Yes.
All right.
And
you're correct.
you didn't expound on that. Could you tell a little more about him?
All right, sir. She can, but it's going to have to be after the break. Ladies, we're coming up to the breaks. Tight, relax for a few moments. One more hour with Joanne and Star and Max the Crystal Skull. There are only 13 ancient crystal skulls in the world. Joanne has one of them. We'll be back. Was it 20 or 60 minutes? One of them went down there and exposed the Filipino healers. That's what I recall.
You can't say that about all the Filipino healers, and I will say that in the 5 years that I traveled with this healer, I saw some incredible miracles happen. Well, I just like to say that I find it very interesting, and I've read about the crystal skulls and all that, but I just have some really negative feelings about Star's role in the whole thing, that's all.
All right, that's fair enough. Star, what have you seen? Just, I mean, really lay it out. What have you seen a healer do? Have you seen a healer put a hand into a body?
I have seen manifestation, and Brother Angel never claimed to be putting his hand into the body. I've seen manifestation happen. And I've seen people who were crippled come into the room crippled.
You're speaking, Star, you're speaking over my head. You've seen manifestation.
Yes. I never saw a hand go inside the body.
So what is a manifestation?
Oh, I saw the manifestation of water turn into blood.
Well, that's pretty serious.
But this healer that I worked with was not so much into the manifestation as he was into people believing in the power of God within themselves to heal themselves. And that was the focus of this healer. There are other healers who are into, big manifestation. This healer that I worked with was not that way. He worked on a spiritual level.
All right, good enough. The both of you hold on. We'll be right to you. This is Dreamland. We're talking about Max the Crystal Skull. Zero. Back now to Joanne and Star. And to a call somewhere east of the Rockies. You're on the air. Where are you calling from, please?
Oklahoma. I know the late Joe Pine from the Korean War. He exposed some of the people that were cutting the Band-Aids with their hands, and then they were pretending to pull chickens and turkeys out of people's fatty areas, and it was already there and stuff. This was a TV show that was on in the 60s.
I remember Joe Pine.
Yeah, well, he exposed, it was called Tony the Phony, and it was in the Philippines, and it was somebody who was supposed to be healing, but he wasn't really doing it. They were reaching in the fatty tissue of someone's stomach.
Yep.
Yeah, that was what it was.
Yeah, I remember, Star, you want to comment on that? I mean, they really have exposed some of that as fraud, and if there is some real stuff going on over there, I suppose its credibility has been damaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's too bad because the phonies ruin it for those that are real. And isn't it that way always?
And the public is very quick to dismiss. I mean, if a newscaster at the end of a newscast has a report about a UFO, and then he does a little chuckle at the end, everybody dismisses it. If there's one report on a fake healer in the Philippines, then all Philippine healers are fakes.
That's right, and that's not fair.
It seemed like the time I met him, I never saw any of that. I thought that mainly Brother Angel was just doing spiritual work.
He worked with the light. He worked with the light. And he was a very great healer, and I saw many wonderful things happen.
Star, I can't resist. Everybody's always talking about the light. A very good friend of mine is named John Lear. John Lear is the son of Bill Lear, who invented the Learjet, the 8-track, all the rest of that sort of thing. John Lear once told me that he was told, when you die, don't go to the light. The light is a trick. Go to the darkness. Nothing has ever bugged me as much. And, Star, I thought I might throw that one at you. And
don't go to the light.
That's what he said.
Oh, I'm not going into the darkness.
You're not going to the darkness.
I'm going towards the light.
I'm still sort of feeling the same way myself. Very quickly, west of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joanne and Star.
Yes, this is Robert from Yuba City, California.
Hi, Robert.
Joanne.
Yes.
Yes, are you within near presence of Max?
Yes, I am.
Have you ever, or are you able to set up a mental link between him and others?
All right.
I'm trying to contact. I need to speak with him.
I understand. This I can't resist. I'm going to hold it till after the break. All of you stand by, all right? Let me hear an all right.
Yes.
Yes, all right. Yes.
There is some power imbued in crystal, and
Well, it has that energy.
I must admit, I would like to get next to Max myself for a little while. What of the people that approach Max, not the psychics, not the sensitives, but normal people, and you tell them this story, I'm sure, because it's sitting there in the Max box and everybody can see it, so they come over to the house. And what do they get out of it? Are there people who come over and say,
Yes, they just sit there and they think nothing's going to happen. And then all of a sudden they approach it and they start touching it and they start feeling this energy field coming off of it. And then some people feel absolutely nothing and they write me weeks. It's a delayed reaction. They write me weeks and months later saying, well, I didn't think anything was going to happen, but all of a sudden it hit me like a bomb. He appeared to them and told them something. Sometimes they don't remember what it is, but I feel that Max is like calling in his loose fragments, if that makes any sense. That he's calling to people, and all of these people who come into contact with him and come into his presence, they're all little loose fragments around here that he's calling back into presence to tell them something, whether they remember it consciously or unconsciously. It's like the shepherd calling in a sheep. He's for some reason calling in these loose fragments.
I admit there is some sort of drawing, or you feel drawn. I've got an extremely good photograph, the one I'm going to put on the bulletin board or publish, and you feel it's the doggonest thing. You feel drawn to it.
It's like he's got lost keys, and you were part of those keys, and he's finding keys to the puzzle.
Yeah, it's really weird. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Joanne and Star. Hi.
How you doing tonight?
All right.
I was curious if they've ever thought about having all the skulls pulled together in one spot to see what kind of power would come about.
Yes. In fact, that was one of Nick Nosferina's dreams, is to have all the skulls to come together at one time. However, the skulls don't want their $1 million artifacts out of the museum, and they won't cooperate. So Mitchell Hedges' skull and Max was the only skulls that have been together.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the air tonight.
Where are you?
Elma, Washington, Art.
All right. Thank you very much. So, a meeting of the skulls.
A meeting of the minds.
We would love to see that happen.
What do you think would happen? Anybody want to guess?
It's no telling what would happen.
A lot of light.
A lot of energy, certainly a lot of, it would be like a powerhouse.
Better than 100 megahertz pentium, huh?
Probably.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joanne and Star. Hello.
Oh, hello, Art.
Hello. Where are you?
Can you get pretty good here?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Where are you?
Oh, good. This is Edward from LaSalle, Illinois.
All right.
I find this really fascinating tonight. I wonder, there's a lot of question about Max's origin.
Yes.
Have you ever considered the fact that if you knew what's the face that matches the skull, whether it was a model or whether it was the original person or being who owned the skull, so to speak, if you knew what that face looked like.
You mean, was it a self-portrait?
Was it a self-portrait, or was it a portrait of an ideal type, of the type of person who, the craftsman that crafted the skull?
Or are the ancient skulls, the 13 of them in the world, not terrestrial in origin at all? Not terrestrial in origin at all?
They're not, well, they're all believed to be terrestrial by some people, but they're all different in size and detail. There are no two alike.
That's also odd. Some of them have moving or even detachable mandibles.
That's the Mitchell Hedges skull in Canada. It was found in it was not found in Guatemala. It was found in British Honduras, which is believed now beneath a collapsed altar. And the jawbone was found 3 months later. It has the moving jaw. Most of the other ones do not have moving jaws. They're all in one piece.
Fascinating. First-time caller line. You're on the air with Joanne and Star. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, where are you?
I'm in Destrehan, Louisiana.
All right. Well, you're on the air.
Wonderful. I'm calling tonight about the skull.
Yes.
And what I wanted to ask is I was doing some research, and the question that Star had said that the skull had held some secrets and that it had keys to the mysteries and open doors of chambers. And I did some research about Masons, and they're associated with skull and crossbones and Egyptology. And then Egyptology is associated with pyramids and chambers. So I was wondering if this skull had any relation to this type of thought.
All right.
Well, when we take photographs, research photographs of the skull. You can see various images in it. You can see pyramids, several pyramids under its nose that goes back inside. You can see something that looks like Bigfoot. You can see underwater scenes, inner earth scenes. You can see extraterrestrial that sits in its eye. You can see UFOs.
Matter of fact, in the photograph I've got here, you can see a couple of things. And maybe the more you stare, the more you see. I'm not sure. But it is odd.
Yes, it will come in and out. It's like the rock has picked up sound, and like I said, an image and vibration occurring around it in time, and it's programmed it there. And for various people, viewing have to be intuitive. When they sit and touch the skull, it's like a flashback. They will pick up these images off of it.
Strange. All right.
One of the things that's really interesting, as I mentioned, I was just down in the Yucatan, and I noticed that Max's nose indenture is shaped exactly like the Mayan arches in the sacred sites.
Well, that is interesting.
It was amazing when I realized that.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joanne and Star. Hi.
Hi, my name's Marshall, and I'm from Princeton, Minnesota. It's about 50 miles north of the Twin Cities.
Yes, sir.
I'll save my compliments to you for another call because you got a guest. I want to know if Mac has any visions for the future about our future life and stuff like that.
Okay, we kind of covered that, sir. I appreciate your call. According to Star, only nothing but the good, right?
Well, what I've seen in Max is from whence we came, and that's the same place that we're going back to.
Yeah, but that's like saying dust to dust.
Mm-hmm, and light to light.
Well, I don't know that I'm fully comfortable with that. Ladies, stay where you are. We'll be right back to you. Positive, higher dimensions, but, somehow or another, that sounds like the end of this physical life. And I think that's what I'll ask when we come back, which will be in a moment. You don't have to put up with it. Well, I know a lot of you do, but you don't have to. What am I talking about? Hard, foul water. That's right. Hard water gets into everything, it fouls it up. You know what I mean.
We're going to continue to allow Max to be a joy and inspiration to many thousands of people to come.
Well, I find that you do not charge to be a credible thing. Both of you, Joanne, Star, thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, good night. And you'll be hearing from people. Believe me, you're going to be hearing from people. All right, again, the Roswell photographs are due to appear in our newsletter. And I'm not exactly sure when the deadline is, so I'm telling you, get in now, get the newsletter now. It's just $29.95 a year. Max, we will try to get a GIF picture whisked together of Max. He is very odd, and we'll get that on the bulletin board and maybe in the newsletter. If you'd like to order the newsletter, the magic number to call right now, or 24 hours a day, you've got to get it done. If it's busy, please keep trying. It's 1-800-917-4278. 1-800-917-4278, or the bulletin board at area code 702-727-1709. On behalf of all at the network who make Dreamland possible, thank you, and from the high desert, night all.